The Olympics. There's racing, swimming, basketball, boxing, high jumping. But what if I told you there was also death? Today we'll be checking out the worst Olympic deaths of all time.
First up, 1912 Stockholm Olympics.
Olympics. On July 14th, 1912, Portuguese marathon runner Francisco Lázaro lined up in Stockholm for what would become the deadliest marathon in Olympic history. The 21-year-old carpenter from Porto had trained in Portugal's moderate climate. At 1:45 p.m., temperatures reached 90 degrees Fahrenheit with oppressive humidity, making the 26-mile course a furnace of asphalt and dust. Before the race, Lázaro made a fatal decision. To protect himself from sunburn, he covered his entire body with a thick layer of beef fat and wax, creating what he believed would be protective coating against the sun's rays.
Okay, all right. Like, what? I get that it's 1912, right? And the science is, you know, not really sciencing as hard as it is now. But, bro, is that not going to just amplify the powers of the sun?
I think that it would save him from getting sunburned, but it'll probably make him really, really hot. Because it's essentially fat that he's putting on top of himself, which is going to insulate himself even more. So he's going to overheat and have a stroke, I think.
I wonder what happens, too, like, because stuff gets absorbed into the skin. I wonder that can't be good either, getting beef fat in your skin.
No, that's actually good for you.
Oh, for real?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he put so much that, like, do you know how if you, like, paint your whole body, that's actually terribly bad for you and you could die because your glands can't sweat?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So that could be it.
Okay. Yeah. So I think he's going to overheat. It's not like it's not going to amplify the burning of the sun, but it's just going to make him super hot and he won't be able to sweat. Yeah.
He's closing up every pore.
Looks like he's covered in pee and like a
he had
cool
sealed
jacket
his
from
skin
Versace.
in a waterproof barrier that would prevent his body from cooling through perspiration. As the 69 runners began the marathon, Lázaro started conservatively, running alongside competitors from Sweden, Finland, and South Africa. The early miles passed without incident, but as runners moved through the Swedish countryside, the sun climbed higher and temperatures continued rising. By halfway, several runners had collapsed from heat exhaustion and been pulled from the course. Lázaro continued despite showing early signs of distress. His breathing became labored, and sweat accumulated beneath the waxy coating, unable to evaporate and cool his body. At the 18.6-mile mark, witnesses reported that Lázaro was staggering and appeared confused.
He's almost
Classic
down.
symptoms of heat stroke. His core body temperature was rising dangerously as his cooling system failed completely. With just 5 miles
the fat
remaining,
off your body.
Lázaro collapsed suddenly on the dusty road near Södertälje. Spectators rushed to his aid, finding him unconscious and burning with fever. His skin was pale and clammy beneath the melted wax coating. Swedish medical personnel transported him to Serafimer Hospital in Stockholm, where doctors worked frantically to lower his body temperature. Despite their efforts,
wax out of there.
Lázaro never regained consciousness. He died the following morning from heat stroke and dehydration, becoming the first athlete to die during Olympic competition.
Who told him that was a good idea? Was it his coach or did he come up with that himself?
Back in the day, I think it was just probably like a old wives' myth, right? Like they were like, oh yeah, just rub your body in beef fat, like it'll help.
What?
Here's probably what happened. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually works for sunburn, and that's why he put it on, was so that he doesn't get sunburned. But people probably don't put that on and then go run a million miles. They probably put that on and then just go outside and not strain themselves. So no one probably knew yet that it actually clogs up your pores and makes it so that you can't sweat, thus overheat. So it probably works for what people intended to use it for, but it probably doesn't. It definitely doesn't work for cooling off the body. I gotta say though, obviously that's a really sad story, but it is kind of motivating. Like, bro literally ran until he died. That is like the most determination of all time. That is insane.
David Goggins would listen to that story and he'd say, stay hard.
Yeah, he is the David Goggins of David Gogginses.
His death led to new safety protocols for marathon races, including mandatory water stations and temperature monitoring.
I also just looked it up, and beef fat does not protect you from the harsh rays of the sun.
Dude. What?
Well, then I'm out of ideas.
2010 Vancouver Olympics.
Vancouver Olympics. On February 12th, 2010, Georgian luger Nodar Kumaritashvili was making his final practice run on...
Adam, what was his name?
Do not. This is serious. Don't even test me.
Oh, is that him? I like it better when it's really old and we don't get pictures.
Just hours before the Vancouver Winter Olympics opening ceremony,
this was not
the
that long
21-year-old
ago.
athlete had trained his entire life for this moment, following his father and uncle, who had both represented Georgia in luge.
Oh, wow.
The Whistler track was notorious as the
dangerous,
fastest and most dangerous in the world. with speeds regularly exceeding 93 miles per hour on its 4,480-foot
The luge is
During
no
training
joke.
weeks, several athletes had crashed, raising safety concerns. Italian luger Armin Zögler had publicly criticized the track's design, calling it too fast and dangerous. Romanian racer Violeta Stramturaru had suffered a concussion after losing control, and several others had experienced crashes.
Bro, I don't understand, like, why would they continue with the race if all these people are getting injured? I get that it's supposed to be, like, an extreme sport, right? So, like, there is a risk involved, but if so many people that are the best of the best, these are professionals that are supposed to be awesome at their sport, if they're getting injured, like, you're just setting yourself up for more injuries.
I get both sides here, though, because it is the Olympics. It's supposed to be the best, you know? The absolute best doing the hardest thing imaginable.
It should still, like, have some safety precautions, though.
It definitely does have some safety precautions, but it was just like...
This ain't X Games, bro. They are not on X Games.
The Olympics is on, like, it's like a safer version of what people used, like, to watch, like, the gladiators fight it out. Like, we're watching for the excitement of people doing
greatness.
super
We want to see
rare
greatness. That's
and
what
crazy
we
risky
see.
things.
I watch Red Bull on YouTube if I want to see that. If I want to see the best of the best, battle it out for who's the best of the best. However they do it. We watch in track, we watch them all run in one direction, bro. It's about who's fastest, right? It doesn't matter about the slips and the curves and the
I think a healthy mix, like there needs to be danger, but it can't be so dangerous that people are dying and like regularly getting hurt from it.
Right, like imagine in track and field if they were like, all right, we're gonna release a rhinoceros and then everybody's got to run.
There's a sport for that with a bull.
I would watch
People
that,
like
though.
to see that with the red cape and the bull. That sounds awesome.
That's not in the Olympics yet.
Damaged their equipment.
Anyway, what happened?
At 4:44 p.m., Kumaritashvili began his run from the men's start position, lying on his back on the small sled as he accelerated down the icy track. The first several turns passed normally as his speed increased. By the track's most challenging section, he was traveling at approximately 90 miles per hour, well within normal range for experienced luger.
You guys have seen this, right? Like you've watched it in the Winter Olympics?
Is this bobsledding?
No, bobsledding is with a whole team.
Okay.
This is solo.
Solo mission.
Okay.
Do you guys, should we watch a video of like how fast it is?
No, I think I've seen it before. Yeah, it is absurd. And like one thing that's like really boggling my mind is like in a car, if you go 90 miles an hour, that's freaking fast, bro. You're like, and if you crash, you're probably gonna die, and you still have like the airbags that go off and the car to defend you. In this, you're going 90 miles an hour. If you crash, you have nothing.
Against lugers. As Kumaritashvili approached turn 15, known as 50-50, something went wrong with his steering. Video analysis showed his sled began drifting slightly left toward the outer wall. He attempted to correct by applying pressure with his right leg, but the adjustment came too late and was too aggressive. His sled suddenly shot up the banking of turn 16, launching him into the air like a projectile. He was thrown from the sled at over 87 miles per hour, flying several yards before striking a steel support pillar. Holding
He's a torpedo.
The impact was horrific,
That's a car crash.
causing massive trauma to his head and chest. Medical personnel reached him within minutes and attempted CPR, but the injuries were unsurvivable. He was pronounced dead at Whistler Healthcare Center at 5:50 p.m., just hours before the opening ceremony. Track modifications were immediately implemented, including higher walls and padding around steel supports.
And they still did it too, by the way. They still did the same race. They just added extra safety precautions.
Dude, they put pads on the steel poles like off the track just in case the next couple people went flying off of the track. How about shut the track down?
Do a different track.
Well, people train for 4 years. They trained for so long to do that. They're not going to cancel it.
After someone dies?
It's a whole event. There's so much money. Every country, they only have one opportunity. If they shut down the track.
But Adam, if you go to a race, right? Like, let's say you're a part of that race, and a professional dies doing the exact same race that you're doing, would you still do that race the next day? No!
I would.
There's no way!
I would.
What about a slide? Okay, you're at a theme park and there's a slide that's really cool. And you're like, oh, that's a cool slide. Look at how cool it is. And someone dies there the day before. You're telling me that you would still go on that slide?
No, that's
it's the same thing. It's
no,
the same.
It's not. If
yes,
I'm doing that race, I trained for my entire life to do this one competition.
So did he. So did the dude that flew off. That wasn't a noob. That wasn't a random dude. That dude also trained his whole life to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
They prioritize keeping the show going over making necessary changes that would not put people's lives in danger.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
No, they increase the side.
Yeah, but like
No, they did. Nobody else died.
They're lucky. They're lucky, or I would have got them. That would have started a revolution.
What? All right, next up, we got 1992, the Albertville Winter Olympics.
Winter Olympics.
I'm starting to realize the Winter
February
Olympics are the dangerous
1992,
ones.
Swiss speed skier Nicolas Bochete was preparing for a routine training run at Val d'Isère during the Albertville Winter Olympics. The 27-year-old athlete was in France for a demonstration event showcasing speed skiing, where skiers reach speeds exceeding 125 miles per hour.
This has to be the most dangerous sport in the world, right? Skiing or snowboarding, like that, where they fly into the air at 120 miles an hour, then have to land on a slope. That is the most dangerous sport. It has to be.
That or skateboarding, which is kind of like the same sort of thing.
Yeah, or like the people that's like the skateboarding, but down like a huge hill.
Yeah.
Whew.
Bochete was experienced, but not among the sport's elite competitors. On this morning, Bochete decided to take a casual recreational ski run on regular slopes, away from the speed skiing course. He wasn't wearing specialized speed skiing equipment, instead using standard alpine gear for what was meant to be a relaxing warm-up. Weather conditions were good, with clear skies and well-groomed slopes. At approximately 10:30 a.m., Bochete was skiing down an intermediate slope when he encountered an unexpected obstacle. A snow grooming machine was working on the slope to maintain snow conditions. These massive vehicles, weighing several tons with powerful engines and wide tracks, are commonly used to prepare and maintain slopes. What happened next remains partially unclear, but witnesses reported that Bochete appeared to lose control or misjudge his line as he approached the grooming machine. Whether due to momentary lapse in concentration, equipment malfunction, or miscalculation, he was unable to avoid the massive vehicle. At his traveling speed, even on an intermediate slope, there was no time for evasive maneuvers once he realized the danger. Bochete collided with the rear of the snow grooming machine with tremendous force, suffering massive traumatic injuries that proved immediately fatal. The impact was so severe that survival was impossible, despite immediate response from resort personnel and medical teams. His death sent shockwaves through the Olympic community and speed skiing world, leading to increased safety protocols for demonstration events and stricter guidelines for athlete and resort operations interaction during Olympic Games.
Oh, dude, that is tragic. That is so sad.
Oh, that reminds me of one winter when I was going down hills. We probably would only get to like 20 to 30 miles an hour, but there was this, on the hill, it's all clear except for this one sign. This one wooden sign was kind of towards the end of it. And like everybody knew that the sign was there, so everyone was like going left and right. But there was this one group that was like right at the sign, and we're like, it's probably pretty easy to avoid, but at the same time, it's like a magnet for those types of things. So this grandma was going down the hill, and she wasn't even closer, but she started going like crooked like that. So she was on a beeline, and she was clearly a rookie. She didn't know which way to control it. So it tracked the entire time, and boom, she banged right into the wooden side, and then paramedics had to come to take her out. It was really sad. She slammed into it like 35 miles an hour.
Oh my God, that's crazy, dude.
She was down quick. She was down right to the ground.
And she wasn't even in the Olympics.
No, she was just going out. She was having a good time sledding down.
Was she okay?
I don't. They pulled her off on a stretcher. I actually didn't even check for updates. I don't know. Next up, 1960 Rome Olympics.
1960 Rome Olympics.
What is that?
On August 26, 1960, Danish cyclist Knud Enemark Jensen lined up for the 62-mile team time trial at the Rome Olympics, unaware he was about to become the first athlete to die from drug use during Olympic competition. The 23-year-old was part of Denmark's four-man cycling team, competing in the grueling road race under scorching Italian sun, with temperatures reaching 104 degrees
Bro's getting cooked like a pepperoni.
Jensen had been taking Roniacol, a blood circulation stimulant legal at the time, but later banned due to dangerous side effects.
It was legal at the time,
especially when combined with extreme exertion and heat. The medication was commonly used by endurance athletes who believed it improved performance by increasing blood flow, but its effects in hot conditions were poorly understood. At 2 p.m., the Danish team began racing from Terme de Caracalla, with Jensen taking his turn at the front as they battled oppressive heat and the challenging course through Roman countryside. The team time trial required all four cyclists to work together, maintaining high speeds throughout the 62-mile distance. For the first hour, Jensen appeared to handle conditions well, rotating through the pace line and maintaining the rapid tempo necessary for Olympic competition. However, as the race progressed and afternoon heat intensified, Jensen began showing distress that teammates initially attributed to normal racing fatigue. His pedaling became less smooth, and he struggled to maintain position during his front turns. By the 54-mile mark, With just 8 miles remaining, Jensen was clearly in trouble. His teammates noticed he was weaving slightly and seemed disoriented, but encouraged him to continue rather than recognizing developing medical emergency signs.
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell right there. Again, they train for so long, and it's like you in your mind, if I'm one of those 3 in the back, I think I'm just pushing him. Like, I'm pushing him so that the whole team can finish.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like, I don't go on runs often, guys, but I used to when I was younger with my brothers. And we would push each other to keep going, keep going, keep going. Because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, I wonder what is going through his head. Yeah. Because he's the only one that really knows, like, how messed up he's feeling. So I guess he also thought he could keep going if he didn't stop.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if you are feeling really bad, like, I'm sure we've all gone on runs or done cardio to a point where we're probably like, wow, I feel like I'm going to die. You've never went on a run before where you're like, holy crap, like I feel like I'm gonna die if I keep going.
Yeah, that
it doesn't matter, you keep going anyway. You just keep going.
This is the extreme of the extreme, Alec.
Exactly. But my point is, like, he was probably in that state where he was like, wow, this sucks. I feel like I'm gonna die, but I'm gonna keep going because there's no way that I actually die, right?
And if he stopped, he would have had to let his whole team down too.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm sure he would have rather have stopped.
Well, yeah.
5 miles remaining,
your body,
Jensen
guys.
suddenly collapsed while riding, falling from his bicycle onto hot asphalt. His teammates and race officials immediately stopped to assist, finding him unconscious with severe heat stroke signs. His body temperature was dangerously high, breathing labored and irregular. Italian medical personnel transported Jensen to a Rome hospital, where doctors worked to lower his body temperature and stabilize his condition. Despite their efforts, Jensen died several hours later from heat stroke, exacerbated by the circulation stimulant. The autopsy revealed that roniacol, extreme heat, and intense exertion had overwhelmed his body's temperature regulation ability, leading to the first serious Olympic drug testing discussions.
It's kind of sad because a lot of the people so far in this list were kind of like guinea pigs for other people, right? So like they died as a learning lesson almost, so now other people don't have to go through the same thing.
Yeah. That's kind of like all of these death videos that we watch, like with the roller coaster stuff and the caves. Like, somebody has to die in order for something to actually change. Which, I mean, it makes sense, but it's sad. All right, next up, 1964.
Innsbruck Winter Olympics. On January 25th, 1964, Australian alpine skier Ross Milne was training on the downhill course at Coughlin Mountain above Innsbruck, preparing for the Winter Olympics beginning in days. The 19-year-old from Sydney was one of Australia's most promising young skiers, representing his country despite limited access to world-class training facilities and snow conditions at home. Milne had arrived weeks early to acclimatize to challenging European racing conditions and familiarize himself with the Olympic downhill course, known for its technical difficulty and high speeds. The Coughlin downhill was considered one of the most challenging courses on the international circuit, featuring a vertical drop of over 2,850 feet and sections where skiers routinely exceeded 81 miles per hour. The course included several technical sections with sharp turns and elevation changes, demanding precise technique and split-second timing. During his training run, Milne was skiing at racing speed through the upper section when he encountered a particularly challenging sequence of turns requiring precise line selection and expert technique. Snow conditions were firm and fast, typical for World Cup-level racing, but unforgiving for any technical errors. As Milne approached a sharp left-hand turn at high speed, something went wrong with either his equipment or technique, causing him to lose control of his skis. In Olympic-level downhill, the margin for error is virtually zero, and once a skier loses control at racing speeds, recovery becomes nearly impossible. Video footage showed Milne attempting to regain control as his skis...
They had video back then? Yeah, 1964, yeah. Okay. It feels like forever ago.
It's probably not great quality, but I guess that there's some. I do not want to watch it, by the way, so don't even suggest it.
Do not want to watch that either. That is pretty bad.
His skis drifted wide of the intended racing line. Fighting to bring his skis back under control, he was carried off the prepared racing surface into trees bordering the course. At his estimated speed of over 62 miles per hour, the impact with trees was catastrophic. Milne struck several large pine trees sequentially, suffering massive trauma that proved instantly fatal.
How did one not stop him?
And medical personnel reached the accident site within minutes, but survival was impossible given impact severity. His death shocked the Olympic community and led to improved downhill course safety measures, including wider safety margins between racing lines and obstacles, better protective barriers, and more rigorous course inspection procedures still used in international ski racing.
Like, obviously, we know, because hindsight is 2020, that all of these things are necessary. But, like, I guess before then, nobody thought about that? Nobody thought, like, oh, like, somebody could make a sharp turn and they'll go towards the trees. We should maybe protect people from that. Nobody did that.
So, well, they probably thought that what they had in place was good enough. Like, for example, they just made safety precautions. But what if somebody else dies now? Even after their extra safety precautions, you would still have the same reaction, which is like, well, why would they not make the safety margins even wider? Why would they not add even more protective barriers? Well, they thought that what they've done now is good enough. And then until something goes bad is when they'll be like, okay, it's not good enough.
So how about this, guys? Hear me out. Everybody watching. Let's think that the worst possible thing is gonna happen, and let's plan for that.
If we plan for that, then we're not even gonna leave the gosh dang bedroom. The safest thing would be not go down a hill at 80 miles per hour. I mean, that's dangerous in itself. Do not go outside.
Write that down. That's why I stay inside where I'm safe.
Athens 2004 and Rio 2016.
A double whammy?
Olympic venue construction has claimed numerous lives, but Athens 2004 and Rio 2016 stand out for their tragic worker tolls.
Yeah.
In Athens, the rush to complete venues created dangerous working conditions that proved fatal for multiple construction workers. On March 15, 2004, months before the Games, 45-year-old Dimitris Antonopoulos was working on the Olympic Stadium roof when safety cables failed. Antonopoulos fell 100 feet to his death while installing lighting equipment. The Greek government had delayed construction for years due to bureaucratic problems, forcing contractors to work around the clock to meet deadlines. Workers regularly worked 16-hour shifts without adequate rest, and safety protocols were often ignored. Another worker, 38-year-old crane operator Nikos Georgiou, died when his crane collapsed while lifting steel beams for the Aquatic Center on June 2, 2004. The crane operated beyond rated capacity due to construction acceleration pressure, and inadequate ground preparation caused the massive machine to tip over.
So for those of you guys watching that don't really know, like, why are they rushing to put this together? It is something that they find out about. There's like a bid for the Olympics, and if your place gets picked, you do not say no. You are like, yes, we will do whatever it takes to have the Olympics here, because it makes you tons of money. There are people from all over the world that will come to your place, they'll spend money, and they'll stay there, and it is just too good to turn down. So they rush everything, and they cut corners, and this is what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I actually didn't know that until recently, but Jack is super right. Even like the World Cup, for example, a country will bid like hundreds of millions of dollars to host it, knowing that they're going to get a lot of tourists who are going to buy a bunch of stuff, and then in the end, hopefully they'll make all of that money back and then some.
Yes. Speaking of the World Cup, Morocco, not to make this even sadder, but Morocco is killing thousands of stray dogs to prepare for the 2030 World Cup. They do not want stray dogs running around. Very sad.
We were in Morocco.
Wait, Morocco is where the next World Cup is?
The one in 2030.
They're killing the dogs now for the one in...
That's as soon as they figure it out, yeah, that they're locked in for 2030. Like, they're preparing now, 5 years in advance.
Wow.
Doggies.
Yep, sad stuff. So, the Olympics and the World Cup, they're fun, but there's a lot of downside to some of it.
Business. Business is business.
Business be booming, though!
Georgiou in the operator's cab. At least 4 construction workers died building Athens Olympic venues, with dozens more suffering serious injuries. The Rio 2016 situation was even deadlier, with Brazilian authorities acknowledging at least 11 construction worker deaths directly related to Olympic venues. On March 27, 2013, Anderson da Silva Santos was installing concrete forms at Olympic Park when a crane collapsed during high winds, killing Santos and injuring 4 others. The 440,000-pound crane operated in wind conditions exceeding safety guidelines due to schedule pressure. On April 3rd, 2014...
Bro, just like, imagine that. You are literally getting paid probably the equivalent of, what, $5 US a day to work 16 hours a day, and then you die to a crane.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really, really sad.
Crazy, bro.
3rd, 2014, 2 more workers died when the Itacarão Stadium roof section collapsed during installation. Fabio Luis Pereira and Ronaldo Oliveira dos Santos were crushed by falling concrete and steel, victims of inadequate structural support. The most tragic incident occurred April 21, 2016, when a bicycle path built for Olympic cycling events collapsed into the ocean, killing 2 people. The elevated path over Guanabara Bay suffered from design flaws and construction shortcuts. Brazilian investigators revealed systemic problems, including substandard materials, inadequate safety training, and pressure to cut corners to meet deadlines and budget.
I would be scared to compete in these Olympic Games now, even more than before, because you going into it, you know that all these countries are cutting corners to make sure that it's there in time. So like, if I'm a bicyclist, how am I even supposed to know if this track is built right? Oh my god.
You might not. You're just trusting that the country did a good job building everything.
These deaths highlighted the human cost of hosting Olympics and led to improved international oversight of construction projects.
That was sad. That's a sad video, and that's real. And somehow you guys love these videos. I don't know. I don't know how. You guys are crazy. So we got more videos where that came from. Now we're going to be watching the most painful cave deaths of all time. And some of these will give you nightmares on nightmares on nightmares.
Mossdale Cave Incident. It was June 24th, 1967, and 10 cavers were about to enter Mossdale Cavern to help clear some of the deeper passages and map them out. The 2 leaders of the group had already explored this cave before, which reassured everyone else. This particular cavern was known for its tight spaces and the very few areas where a person could fully stand. After a few hours inside, 4 of the cavers realized how difficult the cave actually was and decided to return to the surface. They noticed a cloudy sky, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The remaining cavers continued their descent until they reached the far marathon passage, which—
Hold on, isn't it if you see a cloudy sky, that's like an ultimate red flag? Like, aren't you only supposed to go caving if it's like clear? Because once it starts raining, the cave gets flooded and everybody drowns and dies?
Thank you, Alec. That's common knowledge. Why do these people not understand?
The same rule applies for if you're at a water park or in a pool. If you see clouds and you see lightning and if you can hear the thunder, you do not go anywhere near those things. You stay away from the caves, you stay away from the pools, and you stay away from your grandmom's house.
Wait, actually, like when there's a thunderstorm or like some sort of tornado warning, they tell you to get as far underground as you possibly can. So I don't know, actually. They might have a point here.
Yeah, Adam, next thunderstorm, how about you go into a cave and we'll see what happens.
That's a tornado, Adam, and that's in Iowa, and they have no caves in Iowa. They only have cows.
There's tornadoes outside of Iowa. What are you talking about?
Out of the ordinary. The remaining cavers continued their descent until they reached the far marathon passage, which measured
down to
18 inches by 12 inches, with a small stream of water flowing along the bottom. Everything seemed to be going well, and the group on the surface soon noticed that it had started raining, so they took cover.
Where's Adam going?
Maybe he has to take a number 2.
Why did he just take a whiteboard outside? What is he about to write on that thing?
Maybe he's feeling inspired and he wants to go caving.
They said 18 inches by 12 inches. This is 12 inches, by the way. Look at, that's the space that they had to go through that part of the tunnel.
Wait, let me see it compared to your bicep, Adam. No, upwards. Half of Adam's bicep is how big this cave is. That's ridiculous.
Are these people the size of Oompa Loompas? How are they possibly fitting in there?
All right, Adam, if you put it up, actually, I was gonna say put it up to your nose, but I'm gonna save you the embarrassment. All right, let's go.
Concerning, but the cavers inside began to notice rising water levels. When the water became alarmingly high, they decided to end the day's work and head back, even though they were still 3 hours from the entrance. Meanwhile, the surface group spotted something terrifying. A lake of water had formed around the cave's entrance. The cavers inside had no idea how much water was about to flood the cave. The surface group ran to get help, while the cavers frantically tried to reach higher chambers. However, the water continued to rise, pressing toward their faces. Rescuers and hundreds of volunteers worked tirelessly, pumping water out of the cave and pumping oxygen inside, hoping that the cavers had found a safe chamber. Unfortunately, every one of the cavers drowned.
Oh my god! This is why you always want to be the friend that's waiting outside of the cave, okay? Don't be the friend inside of the cave. Be the friend waiting outside of the cave.
What I don't understand is why the friends outside of the cave decided to take shelter and make a tent before going into the cave and saying, "Yo, Dave, it's gonna rain!" Like, it's really not that hard. It's not that hard.
I think you guys had a point with the clouds and the rain.
They pitched a tent and put a tent up and napped in the tent before going and telling their friends that it is about to rain.
Do you think that people camp inside of caves?
Yes, definitely. What happens in the cave stays in the cave, Jack.
You know how it is, Alec.
These guys are staying in the cave for all of eternity.
Well, Jack, yeah, they're dead, dude. Okay, have some respect.
R.I.P. Moment of silence. Luckily, nobody else would be that stupid to try that again, right?
That is where you would be wrong.
Shaft sinkhole tragedy. It was May 28,
Heard about this one.
1973, and a group of 9 diving experts
shaft
had planned
hole.
a dive at Mount Gambier's shaft sinkhole. This sinkhole had a unique feature. There was only a tiny opening leading to a cave with a lake 20 feet below. From this opening,
looks like
a
2
beam of light
legs.
went down into
It
the
looks like
cave
Alec's
and
mom
onto the
trying to
lake,
stand
which
up.
What?
What did you say?
Adam, that's not cool, bro.
All right,
Guys,
come on.
stop the Alec hate. We love Alec's mom. We love her.
It's one thing for you guys to hate on me, which is very annoying. Stop with my mom.
Stop it, Adam. Stop hating on Alec's mom. She's a lovely lady.
Okay.
She's lovely.
This is serious. I was trying to make it light. I was trying to like fill.
Oh yeah, trying to make it light. Oh, that's how Alec's mom's legs. What are you saying? We're watching
It looks like a pair of legs.
Guys, let's stop fighting each other and let's watch a bunch of dudes go into Alec's mom's legs.
This is insane. That's not funny. Don't laugh at that. Guys, this is a serious, sad, tragic video, okay? Let's keep it that way.
was extremely helpful for the divers' orientation. This beam was visible throughout most of the cave, unless divers
looks
ventured
wet down
too
there.
deep into one of the 2 side branches. Everyone initially
go to the
agreed that they
toes.
would stay within a 200-foot maximum depth range, so they could remain in the main chamber and still see the guiding light.
That's
This was
good.
their only plan. On the
Stay near the thighs.
It just had shorts on, guys, when he did the outline.
That was not
second
funny.
day, however,
Not funny.
4 divers planned to go to the western section of the cave, aiming for a depth of 250 feet, which would have been a new
That's
record.
nothing.
This was deeper than initially intended
Why?
and posed a significant risk because in 1973, divers were still using regular air cylinders rather than mixed gas tanks. For this reason, they had to be more cautious as they went downwards because nitrogen narcosis might have settled in. As they went down, the increasing pressure would have pushed the nitrogen into the bloodstream, producing a state of consciousness that is similar to when people are drunk. Keep in mind that these divers were not very experienced in cave diving. They were more accustomed to standard open water scuba diving. This added even more risk to their plan. They started going downwards into the western section of the cave, and one experienced diver noticed that nitrogen narcosis was kicking in, so he immediately went back out. Several of them followed him and went back to the surface as well, but 4 of them kept going, determined to set the record and get a quick look before resurfacing.
Okay.
After a minute or so, the group at the surface became concerned, realizing the 4 divers would soon exhaust their air supply. A few returned to the cave to find them, and they discovered a flashlight and a camera on the bottom.
No.
Okay, that's sad. That's just like the saddest thing to find.
I just think that the people waiting at the top, even though they have common sense, it has to be so painful and like just scary knowing that all your bestest friends are down there in the sinkhole of shaft and they're just swimming around down there and they're running out of oxygen and there's literally nothing you can do. It's not like you have a magical rope that you can pull them out of. You're literally just stuck waiting and then maybe they come up, maybe they don't. It's like, you know, waiting for your dad to come back from getting milk. Will he come back? Will he not? You have no idea.
I feel like the smart thing to do, though, is everyone should just tie each other to each other.
Okay, this is not a fan fiction, Alec. Nobody's in your basement
I
getting
didn't
tied
mean
up.
it that
This
way,
is real
Adam.
life.
That is
No,
not how I
he's
meant
saying stay connected, kind of like how 5-year-olds do when they're in like a summer class and they all kind of grab onto the backpack of the first person so that they all don't get hit by traffic.
You're acting like it's a stupid idea? People died. People are dead because they're not doing what I'm saying to do.
That's the dumbest thing that you could have said because the 4 people wanted to go down, the 3 people wanted to leave. If they were all tied together, 4 is greater than 3. They would have drugged the other 3 people down there. They all would have died.
That's a good point.
They would have played underwater tug of war. Even, I mean, honestly, they should have did like a vote situation where they were like, all right, 4 to 3, we're all gonna leave now. And then they all would have survived.
They also, I don't know if you guys noticed, they said that they were drunk because they had the nitrogen in their brain, so they weren't thinking clearly either.
That's true. They weren't able to make rational decisions. And so they kept going and going and going and going, and then they died.
And they discovered a flashlight and a camera on the bottom, but no trace of the divers. There was a problem that we haven't yet mentioned, silt. The movements of the 4 divers stirred up the long settled silt into a sand cloud that would take a lot of time to settle back. This reduced visibility to less than an arm's length, removing any hope for orientation for the underwater divers.
That's scary. That's scary. I know that this is called the most painful deaths, but that might be the scariest death because they're swimming down there and they cannot see, and they just swim and swim and swim until the point of they have no more oxygen, and then they slowly
Okay, we get it.
It's extremely tragic. I hope that because they have the narcosis, I hope that they were so drunk that they just don't remember what happened, right? And they can't feel any pain or anything like that, because that's way better than feeling it.
Is that what happens to you, Jay?
No, I feel everything. I feel like not going into caves ever.
Being able to see anything, oxygen running dangerously low, and nitrogen narcosis kicking in, the 4 divers drowned. Jacob's well tragedy.
I know how these are going to end every time, but like he just hits us with it and it hurts every time.
Can we get a replay of Adam's reaction there?
The 4 divers drowned. Jacob's well tragedy.
We already said they drowned, and then he said that they drowned again, and you still had that reaction, like you were surprised.
I'm sad people die. What do you want from me?
I just always think to myself during these videos, we've seen dozens of cave deaths, and they are 100% avoidable, guys. 100%. If you get into a car, maybe you'll get hit by another car, but you can just not go into a cave and you will never have any problem in your entire life ever. You will literally live a happy, fulfilling life. You'll find a job, you'll find a wife, you'll find kids, and you'll get them all together and you'll have a blast if you stay away from caves.
He doesn't get it, guys. He doesn't get it. He's not that cool. People who go in caves are cool, period. Next up, though, we have Jacob's well tragedy.
It's November 23rd, 1983, and 2 students from Texas State University, named Richard and Clark, are about to enter Jacob's Well, an underwater hole that leads to an underwater cave. This hole seems relatively shallow, around 25 feet, and many people try to touch the bottom and then come up. However, this is just a deceiving appearance because it actually leads to another underwater cave with 3 chambers. The first 2 are relatively open and easy to get through, but the third one has a really small squeeze to get into it. If you manage to squeeze through, you'll enter a room that is 10 feet tall, and you'll see a really small hole at the farthest edge, too small to pass through. This small tunnel was just 2 feet in diameter, and 2 years prior, 2 people died in it because after they managed to get through, a rock slide
pause it.
filled with
People already have died in this cave, so they know that this cave is dangerous, for one. 2, I'm thinking about this, like what is the best case scenario for these people going down in this cave?
You guys, why are you pretending like you don't get it? Have you ever heard of an adrenaline
I don't get
rush?
it.
These guys are nuts.
Have you ever heard
Go
of jumping?
skydiving then. Why are you going in a tight space?
Hey, skydiving is also dangerous, dummy. People die skydiving. People die bungee jumping. This is another form of adrenaline. There's adrenaline junkies out there, and these guys are adrenaline junkies for caving.
If they like going down into tight holes so much, there's 8 other things I could suggest. This is too much. It's too much.
All I'm gonna say, and I'm not gonna bring it up again, guys that skydive, guys that bungee jump, guys that make a lot of money, guys that are really handsome, they all get girlfriends. I don't know any girl that's like, dang, I want a guy that can dive 300 feet into a well. It's just not cool. It's just
devil's
not cool.
butthole.
You have not been to Ohio.
No, we haven't. Yeah, you're right. We haven't, and we will never. Unless this video gets 10,000 likes, then we will go to Ohio.
They're like, bro, Jacob got 400 feet down in that cave. Like, he's freaking sick, dude.
Woo-wee.
I'm gonna marry that dude.
Pass through. This small tunnel was just 2 feet in diameter, and 2 years prior, 2 people died in it because after they managed to get through, a rock slide filled with gravel blocked them inside. Now, getting back to our 2 students, they were fairly experienced in normal diving, but not in cave diving, and they were trying to get their instructor certification in open water diving.
Again.
Their instructor, Don, was an incredibly skilled and experienced diver, and he was the one who removed the 2 bodies we just talked about. He used to constantly warn everybody to stay away from Jacob's Well since it's deadly, and he even tried to cover up the small hole that leads to the 4th chamber with some cement. But other divers reopened it and left a message that said, "You can't keep us out." Don himself almost died.
That's crazy.
Well. When he tried to enter the 4th chamber, a gravel slide trapped him in the tunnel. He almost resigned himself to death. His tank was empty, and he had swallowed some water when his survival instinct kicked in, and he started rapidly moving until he cleared enough gravel to escape. When he did, he saw his diving colleague extending a regulator for him to breathe. As he started resurfacing, the air inside his body expanded until he reached almost 4 times his normal body size. By the time he broke the surface, he was screaming in pain.
Yo, I never thought about that. No, this is serious. Do not make a fat joke.
Adam,
that's not what happened to me.
I didn't realize that's what happened, bro.
My increase in size is from an utter lapse in judgment every time I see a cookie cake. It's not from this. This has nothing. I don't go down caves.
This is one way to put on mass, guys. This is not the correct way.
Wait, that is actually insane, though. I didn't realize that this is possible. His body was 4 times the size of normal?
Blew up like a balloon.
The air inside his body expanded expanded until he reached almost 4 times his normal body size. By the time he broke the surface, he was screaming in pain. His belly was huge because his stomach had completely ruptured. These stories caught the attention of Richard and Clark, who wanted to take a look for themselves, even though they didn't really know much about cave diving.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit less bad for Richard and Clark for whatever is about to happen to them. Because they know what happens when you go down into Jacob's hole. It never ends well. See what I did there? Jacob's well never ends well.
No, you said Jacob's hole.
Alec.
Yeah, but I said it never ends well. Adam, just let me have some limelight at some point in my whole entire life. You always take it from me.
You want some limelight? Is that liming up for you?
That's pretty
jerk.
lime. All right, actually, let's figure out what happens here. Come on.
On November 23rd, 1983, they went into Jacob's well and reached the 3rd chamber where the small hole was located. Richard removed his tank to get through the hole and started going in while holding his tank. When Clark removed his own oxygen tank and tried to get in, he saw Richard's face and noticed Richard didn't have the tank with him anymore and was suffocating.
What?
Clark quickly reached for the regulator and gave it to him, letting him breathe again. They started passing the regulator back and forth as they made their way out, and somehow they managed to get through the tight squeeze of the 3rd chamber. They then began making their way toward the exit until a terrifying sound caught their attention.
Oh,
a clank
no.
from their oxygen.
Oh my God.
Not only did this mean they hit a wall with the tank,
They went down up their own hole.
direction, but it also meant the tank was almost empty. They realized they'd run into the false chimney in the 1st chamber, a tunnel that looks like it leads to the surface, but is actually a dead end. Clark managed to swim back to the surface and gasped for air after covering an incredible 75 feet in a single breath.
He ditched his friend?
Why didn't he
can't be
explode?
said for Richard, who remained behind and drowned. When Clark called the police for assistance, Don, the instructor himself, showed up and was stunned to see his students there. Gollum's Cave.
If I'm Don, I mean, I'm probably beating up that guy immediately because he was not supposed to go down there.
What happened to that dude's tank again?
Wait.
Stupid is as stupid does.
Did he lose it?
He lost it. He dropped it while he was in there. Yeah, because he had to take it off because it was so tight that he couldn't fit through with the tank. So he dropped it.
Wait, so who was the one that survived? Was it the guy who dropped the tank? Because if it's the guy who dropped the tank, that is like...
No, it wasn't. He stayed behind. Would you guys have stayed behind? Or would you have tried to work together and get through?
Well, I think that they were out of oxygen entirely. Like they were out, and so he just was like, all right, I'm gonna hold my breath and swim all the way back.
Yeah, that guy's a beast.
He said he swam 75 meters in one breath.
75 feet.
75 feet.
Meters would have been crazy. I feel like he would have exploded like the other guy if it was 75 meters.
Surface and gasped for air after covering an incredible 7...
Yep, you got me.
Read the receipts, baby!
Damn, that's crazy.
That must hurt. His ears must have been like insane. I dived down maybe like, I don't know, 10 feet, and it feels like my head's gonna explode.
His students there. Gollum's Cave. It's August 18th, 2005, and a group of 5 friends decided to venture into the Gollum Cave, also called the Cave of Death.
What is that? Is there a ring down there? My
Cave of Death.
The Cave of Death? Are you freaking serious?
There must be like some creature that lives in there, like Gollum, who just like...
That would be like going into a restaurant called This Is Poison and then dying from poison and be like, oh my God, I died from poison. How'd that happen? What are we doing?
You could put $1 million down there and Megan Fox, and I'm not going down there.
You sure, Alec? Can you say the same?
Oh, you know, let's not go that far. That's pretty far.
Sign me up.
Because of how dangerous it was. They reached the entrance at 3 a.m., and one of the friends decided to wait for the others outside. They encountered their first problem when actually trying to get in, as they had to crawl through a small pool of water. After that, there was a fork going left and right, and they chose left, which led them to another small pool of water. This seemingly innocent pool, however, actually led to another section of the cave through an underwater tunnel. The tunnel itself was really small, just 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and to get through it, you had to be completely
big compared to the other ones.
This meant only one person at a time could go in, and they had to swim about 15 feet. One by one, they started plunging into the pool of water to reach the other side of the cave, and once they made it, they discovered a section with about 3 feet of airspace. From the perspective...
Who was the first to figure that out, though? Like, someone had to go in first, unknowing what was on the other side. Like, they just fully committed to that.
That's a pioneer.
It's not that crazy. I mean, 15 feet isn't that long. Like, Adam and I were in Mexico, and we kind of did something a little similar. Where you can swim 15 feet, check if there's anything, and then you could turn around and
you go based off the light pretty much.
That's not what I'm saying. No, I'm saying to be the first person to do that is crazy because they don't know. No, but they don't know what's over there. They don't know there's an air pocket. They just sent it.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that you could go 15 feet and then check if there's an air pocket, and then you could turn around and come back in one breath.
That's, I don't know. I wouldn't
Well,
do
some
that.
people
That's
can.
psycho.
Alec can't take 2 steps without... Cheeseburger, Where's some water?
I'll show you
who
sometime
stayed
now.
outside. There was no sound or light coming from inside the cave, and after a while, he started to get worried.
That's
he went
me.
into the
That's
cave
who I
himself,
would be.
but heard no noises and saw no lights.
No, you would
not
not.
sure
That
what
guy.
to do. He first called some friends who had experience with caving, and then called the police. He couldn't have imagined what was happening inside. The 4 friends who went in probably realized that the 3 feet of airspace they'd reached had bad air, which is a term cavers use for air that doesn't have the normal balance of gases, meaning there's more carbon dioxide and less oxygen. This reduces your ability to think, move, and breathe properly, making the return swim through that narrow tunnel super risky. They tried to get back out one at a time, but the first person who went underwater was unable to find the exit hole before running out of breath.
They clogged the
because
hole!
the increased carbon dioxide messed with her ability to hold her breath and think clearly.
They let a
After
woman go
30 to
first!
60 seconds, the second person went in and
That's
found
not
the
the
first
problem.
one, and so on, until all of them got stuck in the
They
tunnel.
all died! Human centipede style!
No, that's actually so sad.
That's
Don't
crazy.
say that, bro. It's making me laugh.
That's so sad.
Believe that just happened. No, that's actually the most avoidable one that we watched today.
I don't think
How?
so, bro. I think that's the, I would say, least avoidable one.
Bro, no, wait, no,
Yeah,
that's gotta
least
be the
avoidable.
most avoidable,
How?
bro. They
How,
literally,
bro?
they all went in. I mean, they realized there was what, bad air, but they still had some air. These other stories, they had no air. They were out of air. These people had like a little bit of bad air.
No, but it was nitrogen, bro.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
their brain wasn't working. Their brain wasn't functioning anymore. And then once the first person didn't make it, they were cooked. They were cooked
Yeah,
once
yeah.
the first person didn't make it.
He blocked the hole.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The first person ruined it for everybody else.
God, they're probably up in heaven right now, still bickering about it, about whose
I
fault
would
it
be
was.
so mad at that person because they literally clogged it. They ruined it.
Jack, you would be dead, so you wouldn't be that mad.
No, I would be the guy that was calling my friends like, hey, they're in a cave and they haven't come out soon. So like, what do I do?
That's the saddest one, though. I think by far.
Police arrived and tried to pump in oxygen and pump out water, while family and friends waited anxiously outside the cave. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. The bodies were later recovered, and the cave was eventually closed off with cement. The Manchester Hole tragedy. In November 2005, 14-year-old Joseph Lister, along with 10 classmates, including his friends
10?
Charlie and Amy from his school, his math teacher,
Shout
and a
out Amy.
17-year-old caver volunteer who knew the cave system well, decided to
That's an
explore
odd
the
group.
Nidderdale Caves in North Yorkshire, England. The
Oh,
cave
no.
system is famous for its 20 entrances, and the group chose to enter through Manchester Hole, a small opening in the ground that leads to a huge cave. They descended through a hole into a massive chamber, about the size of a football field, with a few inches of water
Wow.
on the
Wait, that's
floor
actually
and
huge.
a 50-foot high
Yeah.
ceiling hung with stalactites. After
I would do that. That kind of sounds awesome.
I think I would too.
It seems like it was a school trip, though. That's kind of a crazy school trip to do. To go caving?
I
That's
mean-
insane.
That's what happens in Europe. They don't have those regulations.
Well, that also seems pretty safe too, if they're going into such a massive cave, but it looks like they're about to go down deeper into maybe a lesser explored section.
I would also want my helper to be older than 17, like at least be 20 plus.
Right, you want them to have experience.
Yeah, 17. They're not even like I don't know how you call yourself an
At least
experienced
18.
cave diver.
At least 18.
Yeah, I want you to be able to buy a vape if you're taking me into a cave.
Exactly. That's strike number 1 for me.
passing through, they entered a tunnel and climbed down a muddy path into a second, smaller chamber that still held all 11 students and had shallow water. The tunnel then narrowed sharply,
Danger.
forcing them to crawl on hands
Yep,
and knees for
that's-
40 feet through twisting
that's
passages.
where I would turn
At
around.
the bottom, a muddy stream soaked their clothes, but led to a small chamber where they could stand again. The math teacher was the last to follow the group.
Okay.
When he reached the small chamber, the guide became very worried because the water level was much higher than usual, something
Oh,
he had never
God.
seen before. Even though it was cold and windy outside, there was no
No.
forecast of rain.
I was just
Everyone
about to
was
say
standing in
something. If ever you are in a cave, right? Because caving, I know a lot of people go inside caves. You know, most of the time it's okay to go inside of a cave, especially a frequented cave, especially if you have an expert. But if you ever see water in a cave, you gotta be super careful because they can fill up extremely quickly with flood water. And then if you get stuck in there, you're gonna be trapped for such a long time, or you could possibly die.
Yeah, I think that's
so
probably the worst way to go is like drowning in a cave.
Yeah.
Rather than just getting stuck.
Exactly, yeah, because you know your fate before it's even happening. Like you could see the water slowly filling up.
Yeah, exactly. And you're trying to crawl as fast as you can, and then you probably have some buddies behind you, and then you can hear them gargling on water as you're still trying to go, and then, oh my
That's
god,
one of my
I
fears.
don't even want to
Math
think about it.
teacher, yeah, your math teacher is screaming out like, what's the square root of 2? And you're like, I don't know, man. And then you die.
And then you learn that you failed your last exam.
Yeah, terrible.
Even though it was cold and windy outside, there was no forecast of rain. Everyone was was standing in freezing water. Their boots were filled with water, and there was hardly any space to move. To make matters worse, the water kept rising, soon reaching above the knees of some students. The guide, confused by the sudden flooding, knew they had to get out quickly.
There we go.
So they decided to retreat. The math teacher went first, followed by the students, one by one, taking the small passage back to the previous chamber.
Someone's gonna get stuck.
At one point, the teacher and 9 of the students were inside the tunnel when a sudden surge of cold water flooded the chamber. The guide, along with Amy and Joseph, were the last to exit the chamber and enter the tunnel. The tunnel was crowded with students struggling against the rising water.
Oh my god.
Realizing the danger, the guide, Amy, and Joseph went back to the previous chamber to catch their breath. But the water kept rising, and they were nearly submerged. Taking a deep breath, they re-entered the tunnel. This time, the tunnel was clear enough for them to move. The guide led the way, with Amy and Joseph following closely.
No, there's
However,
only 2!
In the previous chamber, the guide pushed Amy out to safety, but Joseph never made it out.
No!
The water continued to rise, even in the chamber. The guide tried to go back for Joseph, but the math teacher insisted on taking the other 10 students to safety. Tragically, Joseph drowned in the narrow tunnel, where there was...
That's insane. And they're still not out of the cave yet, by the way. There's still more cave to get out of.
To be honest, though, it could have been way worse. I know, like, it sucks that this kid died, but if 9 of them still got out in this instance, I think it's pretty good.
Imagine if that happened, like, halfway through, then everybody that was behind him would have been done.
Yeah, because he was basically plugging it up.
Yeah, obviously it's not the best case scenario, but it could have been worse. Alex, right?
Yeah, only one person got trapped in Manchester's hole.
That scene from earlier when the water's filling up, like that's a nightmare. Imagine being on like a submarine or a Titanic, and like you see the water level rising, and you have to take your last breath at the top.
That part is insane. The fact that they were able to hold their breath and then get through a tiny little cave section and then make it to the next air pocket is incredible.
God, this is sad. Why do we keep watching these, man? Stop liking these videos.
No air. After the incident, the group went to the surface to alert emergency personnel, and they emerged under a blue sky with strong winds, but not a single drop of rain. It was later revealed that strong winds had blown water out of the nearby Scar House Reservoir that day. Thousands of gallons of water were forced into the river below, causing it to rise 4 feet in just 1 hour. This surge of water drained directly into the cave system. Normally, water slowly trickles through and seeps into the groundwater, but that day, the huge volume overwhelmed the cave's ability to drain, triggering flash flooding throughout the system in just a few minutes.
That is so unlucky.
Cave rescuers arrived within 20 minutes after being called. By then, the water had already receded to below their knees. They found the lifeless body of Joseph Lister in the narrow tunnel before the final chamber. Neil Moss incident.
Wow.
That's gotta be the worst job ever. Being like a cave rescuer, because I'm sure half of the incidents, like, you're going to find what is just a corpse at that point. It must be so sad.
I really hope that one day this YouTuber makes videos where they are successful saves, where like it's a close call, but there's still hope, and like it's like the most extraordinary cave saves of all time, not deaths.
That would be nice to watch. Guys, please comment down below if you guys want to see that instead of this. Oh my god. And that was only the first one, Jack. There's 2 more. Right
Next
now,
up, we
got the Neil Moss incident.
Sunday, March 22nd, 1959, when 20-year-old Oxford philosophy student Oscar Neil Moss, along with 7 other people, 4 of whom were part of the British Caving Association, decided to visit Peak Cavern in the village of Castleton, Derbyshire.
That looks pretty cool.
The cave system was well known. However, 2 weeks earlier, the same 4 BCA explorers had discovered a new fissure in a side chamber that was 1,000 feet deep. The 8 explorers entered the cave system in the afternoon. They were equipped with ropes, lamps, helmets, and other necessary caving materials. Upon entering, they discovered the Mucky Ducks section, a wet squeeze tunnel that was frequently flooded.
Who's naming these?
This led them to the Boulder Passage, an easier section where they could stand upright while descending and maneuver around various obstructions. Approximately 493 feet into the passage, a 10-feet climb on the north wall of the upper gallery awaited them. High above the steep...
Doesn't this kind of look like the inside of like a human intestine?
It does, yeah. That is Satan's intestinal butthole right there.
Wait, I don't...
That's a weird way to put it.
I don't know about all that.
It's not heavenly, I'll tell you that. That is the devil's track right there. I'm just telling you, the turds coming out of that intestinal tract, they are big.
That went a different direction than I was expecting. All right, I'll press play now.
Muddy Slopes was Pickering Passage, a long, narrow crawl space where you had to stretch your whole body to move through. It concluded with an awkward bend and a muddy sump. Above the eye hole, just large enough to accommodate a human body, laid the next challenge. It led to a thigh-deep, muddy pool that connected to the stalagmite chamber, a vast, beautiful part of the cave.
That's actually
filled with
pretty cool
stalagmites
if you
with
made
a
it there.
ceiling high enough for a person to stand upright. Despite their fatigue, they approached the newly discovered
Like, that's where I would stop, like right there.
No. 7 steps ago is when you should have stopped, Adam. You don't get through all of that. You would go through the high hole? Bro, this isn't like climbing a mountain where you get to the top and it's like, wow, look at this amazing view. The view is the same the entire way through, bro. You're looking at walls of rocks, bro. You're seeing rocks everywhere.
No, but that area, it's bigger than all the other areas combined. You could actually stand up in it. That would be so sick. Imagine you travel that far down just to see this one beautiful rock. Alex with me.
I'm with Adam.
Yeah,
and also, I'm trying to think of like an invention that can help people not get stuck. What do you guys think of like a rock?
That calorie deficit.
A caving suit, right?
Oh.
That is like 3 or 4 inches like thick. So you're caving with this suit on, and then if you ever get stuck, there's a button.
What if you can't reach the
that
button?
Then shrinks the suit.
Oh.
This way you can get through. But it's like, okay, if I can't get through with my suit on, I'm not going through. Like, that's your rule of thumb. What do you guys think of that?
I think that I have common sense and I will never be in a cave, so I will never need that invention.
Alec, I like
can't
that.
believe
Alec,
I'm
I like
that
that.
smart.
And I'm going to steal that. And I'm not giving you any percentage. And I'm going to sue you.
Okay.
They're about to come out of the butthole right now.
All right, let's see.
Jack.
The shaft measured around 3.2 feet by 2.3
See, it doesn't even go anywhere
None
fun.
had
Like, that's where I
ventured all
would
the way down
stop.
there, but it was estimated to be at least 40 feet deep. To be safe, they decided to deploy a 250 feet climbing
To
ladder.
be safe.
And Neil volunteered
it's totally
to go down.
safe, totally
He started
safe.
to descend around 3:30 p.m., pushing the ladder before continuing.
Dude.
He went down 12 feet when he met his first challenge, the corkscrew twist. He succeeded in pushing himself into a
Satan's
7-foot
corkscrew
long,
twist.
slightly inclined passageway, and then crawled through it, pushing the ladder as he went.
Oh my
Afterwards, he
gosh.
came face to face with a vertical passageway 18 feet deep, a section none had ventured into before. Throughout his descent, he maintained constant communication with his team above. Excited, Moss dropped further down the tunnel, but
I'm okay.
unfortunately,
Still in
he
the
met a boulder
butthole.
there. He knew he couldn't continue descending, so he decided to climb back up. Unfortunately, Moss found himself unable to lift his feet sufficiently to ascend the ladder.
That's like the worst place to get stuck, at the very bottom.
How does that happen? How do you put your feet in a spot where you can't get them out, bro? That had to be this big. That had to be this big.
Have you ever seen that movie where the guy like slipped and then he got his arm stuck for 72 hours?
27 hours. I watch it once a year. Yeah, but bro, it would not happen right there. He was able to get his foot through, and then now he's trapped.
Yeah, what if he hit a rock and it did a little rock slide and then his foot is stuck now?
Oh, that's the worst spot to be stuck.
I know, it's awful.
See, if he had my patented shoe on, he would be able to shrink his shoe and get it out.
I think everybody should be like butt naked, just lathered up in baby oil. That's the only way you're slithering through these sections.
Okay, maybe not the naked part, but I do think that the oil part could be good actually for slipping out of these scenarios.
Yes.
Maybe everyone who went to Diddy parties went caving after, and they were all prepping. What do you think? All right,
I'm definitely suing you. Oh, I'm building up a case.
Became trapped in an elliptical crevice only 18 inches wide. He called out for
That's huge.
assistance, and despite efforts to lift him by pulling on the ladder, it became jammed between the cave surface and his body. Ropes were lowered to help him, but every time they tried to pull him up, they either snapped or got cut by the sharp edge of the rock. His body ended up blocking air from getting into the shaft, so he needed to be rescued immediately before he ran out of oxygen.
His head is blocking
Some of the cavers
oxygen.
left to seek more help. Within a few
we
hours,
pause?
hundreds of volunteers from across
So hold on, I just gotta get this through my head. So like, best case scenario, right? This guy, he goes all the way down through Devil's Corkscrew, all the way through the Satan intestinal cage, and then he goes down into the rectum area of the cave. What's the best case scenario here? Well, what is he gonna find down there that he hasn't seen on the way down?
Diamonds, Jack, diamonds. He's trying to get down to Y9.
Okay, this is
Y9.
This is not Minecraft. This is not Minecraft.
I don't think he's a diamond digger, Alec. I don't think he's one of those. I think that he's just down there for fun,
I
right?
think
He's
like-
doing it for the thrill.
Yeah,
He's doing it
it's
for the thrill. Jack.
He's trying to
You don't
touch his
just
toe.
High risk, no reward. High risk, no reward. There's no reward.
He gets back up to the top. He goes to the bar's nearby. All of his boys are surrounding him, like hyping him up. A girl comes over. He's like, dude, all my guys, they only went 5,000 feet. I went 5,001.
I twisted my way through the rectum, baby.
And if he finds like a cool room there, then he's got his own like secret room that nobody else can go to.
He can name it too.
Okay, hold on. Hear me out. Alec, you had your invention. I have my invention, right? Cave camera, right? You put a camera on the end of a rope and you just lower it down so you can see what you're getting into, and then you don't have to worry about getting stuck.
But that ruins the thrill. That ruins the whole point of the thrill.
The thrill is killing people, Alec. We've watched 5 videos. Each of them has 5 cave deaths. That's 25 cave deaths that we've witnessed.
Well, Jack, to your point, this was in I think this was in like 1956. So I don't think they had that kind of invention at that point.
True. This is only for future incidents.
He was just trying to find a nice circular round room to play patty cake with the boys, where no one else would ever disrupt him. No one is ever moving on, Alec. Down there.
We're moving on.
Just saying, it's a good spot.
Within a few hours, hundreds of volunteers from across England, along with the Royal Air Force, police, and even the Navy, joined the rescue effort.
What is the Air Force going to do?
It's
too many underground territory.
The rescuers encountered another obstacle. By this time, the air in the shaft had become polluted by carbon dioxide. Moss became disoriented because of it, and he began behaving irrationally. Witnesses said that he wasn't helping at all, that he didn't seem to care about how serious the situation was, and that he even told the rescuers to take a break to get something to eat. Experienced cavers were sent down the shaft to rescue Moss, but one by one, they were forced back by the toxic air. 3 of the volunteers even lost consciousness. Finally, the 4th volunteer, Ron Peters, managed to secure a rope around Moss's chest and began to pull. However, he soon realized that this only worsened Moss's breathing difficulties. The Royal Air Force brought oxygen tanks to ventilate the shaft, and although the quality of air was marginally improved, it proved to be insufficient. The next morning, 18-year-old June Bailey arrived and suggested breaking Neil's collarbone to help rescue him. However, the toxic air stopped all their efforts, and they had to turn back. By Monday afternoon, roughly 24 hours after Moss entered the cave, he was still breathing, but it started to rain, and the entire cave was evacuated as a precaution. When it stopped, the rescuers went back to the shaft accompanied by a Royal Air Force doctor. They did not hear a sound. Moss was not breathing, and he was declared dead on Tuesday, March 24th, 1959. Throughout the ordeal, Moss's father, Eric Moss, stayed at the entrance and asked that his son's body remain where it was to avoid risking further injury or loss of life during the rescue. The shaft was sealed with rocks from the stalagmite chamber. That chamber, which held the shaft, later became known as the Moss Chamber, his final resting place. The Manatee Springs Cave dive.
Wow.
Dang.
So what you're telling me is that people probably still go there to this day because they renamed it, right? So they didn't shut it down. People still are able to get there, and then they find his grave.
Yeah, it's like a memorial center.
Yeah, pretty much.
Respect.
Oh gosh, man.
Imagine like starting in a cave and then that doesn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, he ran out of air. Literally.
Is that what the toxic gas was, you think?
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
the air, he couldn't get air down there.
I would fart as a joke, and then it might get way too serious, and then everyone's like, I can't breathe. And then it's your fault because you farted.
Your own farts and your own exhausts, your own CO2. Yeah, it's a pretty bad way to go out.
Yes, the moral of the story is don't tickle devil's butthole.
Yeah, just steer clear, guys. If you see a cave, turn around, go home, watch Netflix.
The Manatee Springs Cave diving tragedy. On March 14th, 2022, a couple of friends, William and Harry, and their respective fathers, George and Jack, decided to visit the Manatee Springs State Park in Florida to do some cave diving. At Manatee Springs State Park, divers need to have full cave diving certification and must dive with a partner who has previous diving experience at Manatee in order to access the cave area. All 4 divers had only the intro to cave diving certification, not the full one. The Manatee Springs system is known for its 4 entry points. Manatee Springs, mainly for open water divers, Catfish Hotel, Sue's Sink, and Friedman's Sink. The cave tunnels below these points extend for thousands of feet, but only Friedman's Sink and Catfish Hotel have an entrance pool for cave divers. The system is called a siphon because water flows like a river from a distant entry point and naturally comes out at Manatee Springs. Due to this flow, cave divers typically enter at one point and exit downstream at another. This type of dive, known as a traverse, is more challenging because divers must know 2 pathways instead of just 1. Entering a siphon and a traverse system was only allowed for full certified cave divers.
If you go the wrong way,
they decided to.
If you go the wrong way, you're gonna be basically going the wrong way for thousands of feet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you gotta swim upstream. You have to swim against the current.
Yeah, you would think that when you're down there, you would be able to feel the current, but I have a weird feeling because they're only intro cave divers, they're not gonna know what they're doing. And then they're gonna get all flustered down there. They're gonna be like, what's going on? What's going on? And then they go the wrong way, and then it's too late.
Yeah, I think what could happen too is because they're going against the current, they might not be good enough swimmers to get to the end before they run out of oxygen. So they might get like 70% there and then run out of oxygen, and then They're just cooked.
So you think that they're actually trying to go through the other cave system on purpose?
I think
the
so.
Wrong way? Oh god.
Yeah, they already.
We'll see.
I mean,
know.
they broke one rule. Why not break another?
Regardless, they decided to enter the system at Friedman's Sink and planned to exit at Catfish Hotel. They started their dive at 11:17 a.m.
Okay,
Each
Jack's
diver
right.
equipped with 2 air tanks, both filled to 3,800 psi. Since the tunnels were about 100 feet deep, roughly 4 atmospheres of
Dang, that
pressure,
is
the air was
super deep.
compressed to 1/4 of its original volume and consumed at 4 times the
Math.
surface rate. They all carried both primary and backup light sources, as well as dive computers to track their depth, heart rate, movement, and time. Additionally, William and Harry had a GoPro in their head to document the entire dive.
So this is
William
recent.
and Harry took the lead, with their dads following closely behind. The gentle pull of the water from Friedman's Sink helped them cover the 1,700 feet
Okay.
distance to Catfish Hotel.
So far, so
After
good.
the
Like
first
it's going
900
good.
feet, they came to an exit line at Sue's Sink. A rope tied to a rock marked the spot, and light from the surface was seeping
No,
into the
they're gonna
tunnel.
try and go
This
up there.
exit was meant for emergencies only, because it wasn't set up for divers, but for campers. Their planned exit, Catfish Hotel, was 700 feet away. They kept diving and eventually reached the end of the route near Manatee Springs, but they couldn't see the
Okay.
exit line to Catfish Hotel. Confused, they started searching for any light
Oh,
coming from
crap.
above, but found nothing. Fathers and sons teamed up and decided
No.
to return by following the line. At that
No,
moment,
no, no,
George
no,
had
no.
3,000 psi of air remaining, which was enough to exit safely. However, the return trip turned out to be more difficult than expected.
Yeah, 'cause
they
the
were
current.
moving against the current, so their air
Yup.
consumption increased rapidly as their breathing
Crap.
rate went up. Finally, George spotted the exit at Sue's Sink and noticed light leaking from
Can
the
they not
surface.
fit?
George and his son William emerged from the system
There
at
we go.
12 p.m. However, their friends didn't make
No,
it out.
no, no, no,
Something
no,
had
no.
gone wrong. William wanted to dive back down to find Harry and Jack, but George insisted on calling 911 instead. Harry and Jack had apparently missed the exit at Sue's
No!
Sink. Their lighting
How?
equipment
Why would they not
washed out the
wait
natural
there?
light leaking from the
Oh
surface,
my gosh,
and
so much went
boulders
wrong.
further blocked it, so they didn't see the exit. They continued diving desperately for another 20 minutes, searching for any exit. Finally, Harry spotted the light at Friedman's Sink. Rushing
Okay.
ahead along the guideline, he looked
No!
back to see his dad's camera light following him. Harry managed to exit the system at 12:20 p.m. with one tank completely empty and the other below 1,500 psi.
Where's the dad?
But
Where's
his
the
father
dad?
Jack did not emerge.
No!
William and George
Why?
met up with Harry at Friedman's Sink, and they talked about why they had missed the exit at Catfish Hotel. They later realized there was no upline leading to Catfish Hotel. Deep inside the cave, they could see light from the surface, but it was partly blocked by a 10-foot deep passage arranged in a double L shape, a detail they wouldn't have known without prior
2
experience.
Ls.
In fact, many divers enter through Catfish Hotel and exit at Friedman's Sink because it's easier, even though they have to dive against the current. Cave rescuers arrived around 12:50 p.m. and found Jack's lifeless body just 100 feet from the exit at Friedman's
Of course, it
Sink.
was Jack
Both
that
of his
died.
He was only 100 feet.
I don't get why the first group that left didn't wait for the other group. Like, just wait there.
The second one too, like they were right next to each other, and then he saw the light, but the light can travel for a long time. It's like if he knew, he could have saved him.
Right, like as you're like going back up, why would you not like keep looking back down?
What about the dad's son that was there? He didn't wait for his dad.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what
Yeah.
we're literally what we're
No,
talking
that was
about.
no. You're talking about the first one.
No, we're talking
I
about the
was, and then
second.
Jack started talking about the second
Oh.
one.
Yeah, with the son saw the dad. He saw the flashlight. The flashlight could travel for a little bit, but like he had to be close enough to see the flashlight, and then he just ditched him.
I would just grab my dad, buy whatever I could get, and just.
Well, yeah. I feel like when you're down there, like you gotta stay close to your buddy, and that's probably why they don't let intro cave divers down there, because they don't know what to do in this situation.
Oh my gosh.
William Coughlin.
Here we go.
It was May 28, 1993, when 26-year-old William Coughlin, with a newfound passion for caving, decided to visit a cave in Kentucky with his friends James and Kevin. The cave was divided into 2 sections.
That could be
the
us.
historic tour, which was accessible to most visitors, and the more dangerous wild tour, reserved for experienced and daring
Not
people.
for me.
After completing the easier historic tour, the guide asked if they wanted to proceed with the more challenging wild tour. Once they agreed, they were required to sign a document acknowledging the risks involved and absolving the operators of any responsibility.
Just as soon as there is a contract that comes out when you're in a cave that says, do you want to go on the wild tour? You might die in Satan's twisty butthole. You say no. You go home, you turn on Netflix, and you watch a documentary about caving because it is so deadly. Why would you do that?
Immediate red flag.
Who has contracts and liability waivers in a cave? They're already in the cave. He was ready too. He pulled that out. He's like, yeah, sign it.
He probably had his own pen. He was ready to sign his life away.
What are you guys talking about? Of course there's waivers.
There was no waiver for the first part, but if he's like, all right, if you want to go down this deep dark cave, you got to sign my contract. which means that it's so much more dangerous. So that's like a red flag. That's what we're saying. Like, get out of there. That's when you'd be like, nope, sorry, bud. Don't want your quarters. Don't want milk.
I'm so confused. Who is there? Do they just have like a cave troll guide in the back of the cave near the twisty Satan butthole part that just spawns out of nowhere when you want to go back there? He's like, to access my hole, you must sign my contracts.
You must be level 25 or higher to go through.
Well, when you word it like that, I'd sign.
No, I'd probably do it too.
Should have been the first red flag, and Kevin decided to opt out, returning to the safer area.
Wow.
The remaining group, now consisting of William, James, and 4 other participants, was led by the guide into the wild tour.
That's crazy.
He stressed the importance of staying close and reminded them of the potential dangers. As they descended into the lower sections of the cave, they encountered a 30-foot hanging cable ladder with wooden rungs. After climbing down and going a bit forward, there was a second, shorter ladder.
Okay, that is definitely not to scale. 30 feet.
Obviously, Adam.
I know. I'm trying to visualize it though, but
Yeah.
like for the viewers, that's way longer than what it's showing.
Everyone understands that. There wasn't one person confused, Adam.
There was definitely one person confused, and now they're like, oh, okay. It was me.
So I'm trying to figure out, where does this go wrong?
I think it's gonna be something with the ladder. I think there's gonna be a malfunction with the ladder. Let's find out.
Down and going a bit forward, there was a second, shorter ladder. At the bottom of the second ladder, the guide informed the group that the official tour had ended. He mentioned they could explore nearby passages if they wished, but noted that they were running behind schedule and that he needed to step away briefly for a photo. He left the group at the base of the ladder, and this is when William...
They're at the bottom of the cave. You can't end the tour. The tour is not over.
That's like if you're like going with a scuba diver and you're at like 200 feet below the surface of the ocean, and then the guide's like, all right, I gotta go make a call. Tour's over. You can stay if you want. Have fun.
That was somewhere deep in the contract. That's where you never sign a contract like that.
He took him all the way to Satan's butthole and was like, all right, guys, have fun.
Go through the fiery gates of hell. Have a blast.
Oh my gosh, this is about to be awful.
Decided to explore a passage he had noticed earlier. He discussed it with James, who agreed, and William attempted to climb back up the second ladder. However, the climb proved difficult. He was 6 feet tall and weighed 220 pounds. Struggling to ascend, William decided to wait for the guide instead. As time passed and the guide didn't return, William attempted to climb the ladder again. Tragically, halfway up, he lost his grip and fell violently, striking his head on a protruding rock before landing hard on the ground. Blood began pooling from his head, and James rushed to help him. Although William remained conscious, he was delirious and visibly stunned. When the guide finally returned, he instructed the group to climb back out the way they came. However, William's condition made this impossible. James, frustrated, demanded the guide call a cave rescue team, but the guide dismissed the idea, insisting that the group work together
This might
to get
be
William
some jail
out.
time for this
James
guy.
began to suspect the guide was avoiding involving authorities, perhaps to prevent panic among other visitors. The group decided their best option was to bypass the second ladder entirely and take an alternative route through a narrow,
That's a
previously
horrible
mapped
idea.
corridor,
That's
not
awful.
part of the official tour. With teamwork, they managed to navigate the initial section, carrying
not.
William with them. However, the real challenge came when they reached a rough, sharp,
Corkscrew.
V-shaped passage, which made gripping difficult. When it was William's turn, he went in head
Twisty
first, but his
butthole.
size made it an extremely tight fit.
Why would he
Halfway
go in
through,
last?
He became stuck and realized he couldn't move forward or backward. Trapped in a horizontal position with his arms pinned beneath
is
him,
awful.
he began to panic. The tightness of the passage compressed his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. The group's attempts to pull him out were futile. As panic set in, the guide instructed James to exit the cave and inform the owner of the situation. James rushed to the surface, but the owner appeared reluctant to involve authorities. The guide,
Seriously?
finally recognizing the severity of the situation, went out to get a medkit and to call for emergency services. It took 3 hours
This
for
is
rescue and
insane.
medical personnel to arrive. Meanwhile, James stayed by William's side, trying to keep him calm, but William's responses grew slower and more
Where's
slurred
Kevin?
until he eventually stopped responding altogether.
gotta talk to
When
him about
rescuers
somewhere.
reached William, they faced immense challenges. The downward angle of the passage made it difficult to revive him. They brought in heaters to protect him from hypothermia and began evacuating the rest of the group, leaving only James behind to witness what was happening to his friend. A pulley system was installed to try to free William, but every tug caused him immense pain, so much so that he once again started groaning in
can't go
agony.
backwards?
The rescue team worked tirelessly throughout Saturday, but after 17 hours of effort,
He's also
William
bleeding,
was
too.
tragically pronounced dead. It took an additional 7 hours to extract his body from the
Nah,
cave.
bro, that's sad.
I wanted
That's
to take
crazy
this segment
sad.
to announce today's
Okay, you
sponsor,
can't.
War-
That's
What the-
crazy. He just did a
No
spot.
way!
That is
No
insane that he just
way!
hit us with a sponsor right there. For
That's
War Thunder.
insane!
Dude, I'm sorry. What? That is awful timing for a sponsor.
This is what just happened. He was like, they dragged his lifeless corpse out of the cave. And thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. War Thunder is a game about murdering other people in giant vehicles.
Oh my God.
I can't believe that. I actually can't believe that. That's crazy.
So what
That's
you're telling me
insane.
is William is bleeding out, and the cave guide, his first thing that he wants to do is like, nah, bro, we're good. We don't need rescue services. We have the power of friendship.
That was the worst cave death yet.
I think what's probably the worst part of cave deaths is not the physical dread that is going on, but like the mental test that you have to go through. Because being unable to breathe, being stuck in a corkscrew, and having to go through the mental fatigue of just like slowly dying must just be excruciating.
I think the death part's probably worst, Alex.
Adam, if you ever decide that you want to get into caving, I'm not gonna let you.
Hermit Cave Incident.
Hermit
It was
Cave
April
incident.
5th, 1999.
It was April 5th,
21-year-old
1999.
Robert Kennedy from Oklahoma set out on what was supposed to be a normal
the
overnight
president.
camping trip near Hermit Cave. He was accompanied by two others, his stepbrother Richard and their mutual friend Ben. During the night, they gathered around a campfire and discussed the nearby cave, sharing legends and stories about its mysterious
Don't do it.
reputation. The next
If
morning,
stepbro
as
gets
they were
stuck, bro,
packing up to
I
head
can't
home,
watch
their
this.
curiosity about the cave got the better of them. The cave was largely
course it
unmapped,
did.
adding an air of
is
intrigue.
literally
So
us.
Robert proposed a quick exploration. Ben, however, had to leave early for work, so he headed back
It's
home,
always one
leaving
guy
Robert and Richard
that
to
leaves.
decide
Yep.
for themselves. Robert and Richard entered the cave through its relatively large main entrance without...
It's weird. Like, it was cool when there was 3 guys. Now it's weird if 2 guys are going to the cave, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Like, they should just wait to do it together, because if they're all together, there's more people that could help if stuff goes wrong. Like, if there's just 2 guys, what if they both get injured? Then they're both, like, gonna get stuck.
And if it's just 2 guys, well, like 3 guys helps with like the sexual tension. So you know what
Sorry,
I'm
I think
saying?
you
or-
cut out there.
Sorry.
know what I'm talking
We're just
about?
going to move on.
difficulty. Inside, Robert spotted one of the rumored side passages they had been talking about and decided to explore it. The narrow passage was too tight for more than one person, so Richard decided to wait outside the cave. Robert promised not to go too deep and assured Richard he'd be back soon. As Robert crawled forward, he encountered a section
I'm
of the
not going
cave that was
too
about
deep.
100
I'll be back in a jiffy. Like, what?
How does he expect to get out either? You can't turn around. You can't crawl backwards and up. You can't go like vertically backwards.
Feels
I'm
so
just
bad for these
crawling into
people.
Devil's Grundle. I'll be back real quick.
Like, what do they think, though?
Yeah, what are they expecting to find? Like, do they think there's buried treasure down there? Are they Jack Sparrow?
They think there is a freaking cave troll at the end of this with like a barrel of gold coins just waiting to be taken.
Oh, you found me.
Like,
yeah, take my gold
best
coins.
case scenario for these people. The best case scenario is they go down this hole, then they come back up. Like, that's it. Like, that's the best case scenario.
Nobody has ever gotten this far in Devil's Butthole before. You must have my treasure, please.
You have unlocked the secrets of the universe.
Oh, you must be a hero.
50 feet long and full of tight curves, making progress challenging. The real trouble began when he reached a particular point called the Keyhole Formation. This section was especially dangerous because it was impossible to exit legs first once passed.
Awesome.
Unaware of
Sick,
this,
dude.
Robert continued forward. But when the passage narrowed even further, he decided it was time to turn back. Returning to the Keyhole Formation, Robert realized something terrible. He couldn't pass through it feet first. His only option was
Idiot.
to move forward through the even tighter crevice, hoping
my
the cave would
gosh.
widen enough beyond it for him to turn
He has to turn around.
What he didn't know was that the crevice sloped
Can't,
downward
it's too
at a 30-degree
skinny.
angle. Exhausted, Robert
Dude.
squeezed through the space, exhaling
Bless you.
all the air from his lungs just to fit. After several
this guy,
pushes,
too.
he reached a horrifying realization. He was stuck. Gravity was working against him, and every attempt to move only worsened his situation. Desperate, Robert began yelling for help, but Richard, waiting outside the cave, couldn't
no.
hear him. Worried after
No.
some time,
Dude.
Richard ventured into the cave by himself, though he had no flashlight because Robert had taken the only one. Crawling in complete
brought one
darkness,
flashlight!
Richard called out for Robert, who immediately yelled back, letting him know he was trapped and struggling to breathe. Realizing he couldn't reach his stepbrother in the pitch black, Richard left the cave to call for help, and about an hour later, a team of 10 rescuers arrived and began assessing the situation. The primary problem was Robert's location. He was trapped in an extremely deep area, approximately 150 feet from the
Crazy. Please.
This meant that drilling a shaft from above wasn't an option, so the only way to reach him was through the inside of the cave.
They're gonna break that
The
keyhole
rescuers
thing.
themselves began experiencing breathing difficulties due to the tight space, so they installed a ventilation system to pump warm air into the passages. Only one rescuer could work at a time due to the cave's tightness, and armed with manual tools, they began trying to widen the keyhole formation. However, the lack of space severely limited their maneuverability.
Dude, that's so scary for these rescuers, because any rock formation that you mess up like could bring down the entire thing. This is a high risk job. This is insane.
Yeah, some type of like just a little bit crazy to be a cave rescuer person, because I hope that they get paid a lot of money, because they're not doing this because they love it. They are risking their lives daily to save people from caves.
I think they love it a little bit. I mean, you gotta love it if you do something like this.
Probably.
Time was running out. Robert's breathing became more difficult, and he eventually stopped cooperating, making faint gurgling sounds, a sign of potential suffocation. After hours of effort, the rescuers managed to excavate through the keyhole formation and reach Robert's feet. Though unconscious, they felt a faint pulse, which gave them enough hope to try to get him out as quickly as possible. They immediately tried to pull him free, but unfortunately, the attempt failed. A pulley system was considered, but the cave's limestone and gypsum walls were too fragile to support the tension. With no other options, they continued digging around his body, which took an additional hour. When they finally freed Robert, they rushed him outside, where paramedics were waiting. Tragically, it was too late. After 5 hours of relentless rescue operations, Robert Kennedy was pronounced dead. Black Cave tragedy.
Wait, 5 hours doesn't seem that long, though. Like, he died in just 5 hours?
People die in 30 seconds when they're underwater and they can't breathe.
He's not underwater, you dummy.
Yeah, but it's the restriction of air. That's what killed him. He can't breathe.
Guys, let's stop bickering and let's talk about today's sponsor, BeckBroJack.co. Links in the description down below for the best plushies, shirts, hoodies in the entire game. Let's get back to the video.
That's insane.
Pronounced dead. Black Cave tragedy. In April 1995, Thomas Edward Benning decided to visit Black Cave in Arizona. Having explored the cave before, he felt confident that this would be a relatively...
Probably because it's black inside.
But isn't every cave?
Yeah, yeah. This might have been the first cave ever to get discovered.
Maybe there's like black limestone in there.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Safe trip. He entered the cave alone, equipped only with an electric miner's lamp and no helmet. The first part of the cave was familiar to him, and he navigated it without any issues. However, at one point, he noticed a secret side passage that caught his attention. Drawn by curiosity, Thomas strayed from the main route he usually took and began exploring the darker, narrower passage. After venturing deeper into the unfamiliar passage for some time, Thomas decided it was time to turn back. But to his growing...
For me, if I go caving, walking... totally cool. The second you put me on my knees, I'm turning around, I'm getting out of there.
No, no you ain't. No, you ain't.
Not a gosh dang second. You ain't. I'm crawling around in a cave. No way.
You're a little creepy crawler.
No way I'm crawling.
I think that there should be a general rule among everybody on planet Earth that if you are over 6 feet and 200 pounds, you should be banned from caving. Nobody should let you go inside of a cave if you're that big.
Alex's knees are meant to be stationary.
Concern. He realized that an hour had passed and he was completely lost. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't retrace his steps to the familiar route. As panic began to set in, his situation worsened. His lamp started to flicker and eventually went out, leaving him in total darkness, miles underground. With no source of light, Thomas turned to his last resort.
Miles?
Nobody leave a like on today's video. I do not want to do this.
A faint glow that barely illuminated the rocks around him. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He continued forward, using one match after another, but the matches burned out quickly, and soon he ran out entirely, leaving him once again surrounded by absolute darkness. Despite the circumstances, Thomas refused to give up. He devised a plan to leave behind small, useless items as markers to avoid circling back to the same spots. Starving, dehydrated, and utterly exhausted, he pressed on until he encountered the fissure, a narrow crack in the rock barely 4 feet deep. Believing this might be his only chance to reconnect with the familiar route or find a larger opening, he decided to enter it feet first. As he lowered himself into the gap, his hips dropped below the narrowest point, and he suddenly realized his mistake. He was completely wedged. His hips were firmly stuck between the rock walls, rendering him immobile. Using every last ounce of his strength, Thomas tried to lift himself back up, but it was no use. He was now trapped, alone, in the dark, with no one able to hear him. Days passed, and Thomas remained in the same position, growing weaker with each passing moment.
When did they find find
home,
him.
his wife grew increasingly worried when he failed to return. She contacted the police, who began an extensive search of the caves in the area. Unfortunately, Thomas hadn't told anyone.
He didn't tell anyone. He didn't tell anyone!
So you're telling me that this guy, he said, bye, sweetheart, I'm gonna go into a cave now. Didn't say which cave, didn't say where he was going, and also, too, what's up with the wife? They said days passed, not just one day, not just 6 hours, days, multiple days passed, and then she called for help? Why didn't she do it the first day?
This is one of those I don't feel as bad, because I feel like this guy's being dumb.
Guys, this is totally preventable. Do not go into cave. Easy.
Which cave he planned to visit, leaving rescuers to search blindly. Miraculously, rescuers eventually spotted his car parked near Black Cave. A rescue team entered the cave, carefully exploring all the mapped sections. They found some of Thomas's belongings, including his glasses and shirt, but they missed the secret side passage he had ventured.
Is he naked?
Wait, why?
Thomas was still
why?
alive at this point, though his condition was rapidly deteriorating. Days passed, and with no further progress, authorities unfortunately called off the search. Thomas was officially declared missing. Refusing to give up, his wife continued pleading with authorities to resume the search.
She didn't go in the cave,
She distributed
right?
flyers around the city and reached out to anyone who might have information, but unfortunately, she wouldn't have known about her husband for a long time. It wasn't until December 1996, over a year and a half later,
Oh my
that 3 other
gosh!
cavers exploring Black Cave stumbled upon Thomas's remains in the dark, narrow passage where he had become trapped. Zacaton sinkhole.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna quit caving. I never started, but I officially quit for the rest of my life.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
You think Logan Paul would have filmed that if he found that?
Yes.
The last cave death is the Zacaton sinkhole incident.
On April 6, 1994, diving legend Shek Exley, the first person in the world to log over 100 cave dives, set out to break a new depth record. His goal was to dive through the Zacaton sinkhole in Mexico, one of the deepest water-filled sinkholes in the world, plunging over 1,000 feet. Shek's passion for deep diving began at a young age when he and his brother would compete to see how deep they could go. Tragically, during one such competition, his brother lost consciousness at around 50 feet and drowned. Despite this,
Okay,
that should be the end! That's when you give it all up. My brother's dead. I'm never doing this again. Are you serious?
His brother died at 50 feet, so he was like, I can do 1,000! Watch this, bro!
I guess, I mean, I can see where he's coming from. Maybe part of him was like, you know, we love this thing, so he felt close to his brother every single time that he would dive into these caves. So maybe that's it. But it seems like it led to his ultimate demise.
His brother died from 50 feet.
After, yeah, it seems like he dove into the Zacaton sinkhole, better known as Satan's toilet.
You're bringing up Satan a lot.
Well, yeah, these are not godly creations, Adam. These are the pits of hell.
Shek pursued his love for diving, becoming an expert. For context, the average diver is advised not to descend deeper than 150 feet, with 300 feet considered the absolute limit for experienced divers. Accompanied by fellow diver Jim Bowden, Shek meticulously prepared for the record-breaking dive. The event drew TV reporters who wanted to witness this extraordinary feat. As the two divers descended into the Zacaton sinkhole, they wished each other luck. Although diving together, their dives would be independent. Exley had trained for this attempt, pushing his limits in previous dives. During one preparation dive at Bushman's Hole in South Africa, however, something weird happened. He reached an astonishing depth of 863 feet, but experienced alarming symptoms. He began hallucinating, and his body trembled uncontrollably, which are classic signs of high-pressure nervous syndrome, or HPNS. HPNS typically manifests at depths beyond 500 feet, and is believed to result from the compression of cell membranes in the central nervous system. The condition can cause confusion, tremors, and even hallucinations, making it incredibly dangerous for divers at those depths. To mitigate these risks, Shek and Bowden planned to descend slowly, carefully switching tanks as they reached new depths. For the first stretch of their dive, everything went smoothly. However, problems began to arise at around 800 feet. Bowden noticed slight trembling in his hands, an early warning sign of HPNS.
That's when you go right back up, right?
Yeah, I feel like as soon as you start to feel a little bit uncomfortable and sick, that's when you just say, hey, it's not worth it. I like living. Let's just go back up and then we'll try again later.
And it's not like they can just ascend. I'm pretty sure you have to go through each like every 100 feet, you have to equalize yourself with the pressure. And then you can go to 700, then 600, then 500. So it's not like once they start freaking out, they can just go all the way back to the top. It takes hours to get down here. Cave expert.
900 feet, Bowden encountered another issue. His air supply was running critically low. His tank pressure had dropped to 1,080 psi, far below the expected 1,800 psi needed to ensure a safe ascent. Keep in mind that decompression, depending on how deep the divers go, can take up to hours, which meant that Bowden was now...
The thing is, this is different than a regular dive because bro has thousands of people watching him. This isn't one where like, you know, he has to do it. It's not like he's like, ah, dang, I didn't get it today. Let's try again tomorrow. There's so much pressure on his shoulders to make this dive happen. He's on live television. He's got to do it.
What if he goes down like 800 feet, 900 feet, and he pops up and he's like, I did 1,000. Who's going to tell him? Like, for real.
Fact check that.
Like, if his life is on the line, who's going to actually fact check him? Who's down there with him?
That would be kind of funny if he went down like 50 feet so people couldn't see him, and then he just hung out for a few hours and then came back up like, I did it.
Exactly. Nobody would actually care. They'd be like, oh my God, he did it.
He's doing this for himself, and that's why it's not going to go well.
Life or death situation. Realizing the danger, Bowden began his ascent immediately, hoping he could make it back to the surface in time. Exley, however, was in even greater trouble. At around 880 feet, his vision blurred, and his body began trembling uncontrollably. HPNS symptoms, combined with nitrogen narcosis, which is a condition akin to being drunk caused by high-pressure nitrogen, began impairing his ability to think clearly. To steady himself, Exley wrapped his descent line around his arms, but his symptoms worsened, causing him to breathe more rapidly and deplete his air supply at an alarming rate. In a desperate move, he switched tanks, but at such depths, this was not ideal. Disoriented and overwhelmed by his symptoms, Exley became unable to think straight or move. Bowden, ascending cautiously, noticed Exley's descent line with unused tanks still attached. While concerned, he assumed Exley might have successfully reached the sinkhole's bottom and was making his way back up slowly. However, on the surface, the support team grew suspicious. They observed bubbles rising to the surface, but only from one diver, Bowden. A support diver, alarmed, wrote on an underwater slate, "Where's Shek?" She decided to descend to 250 feet to investigate.
That's nowhere
At
close.
280 feet, she spotted something chilling. Two small white squares hanging from Exley's descent line. Upon closer inspection, she realized they were pages from Exley's diving profile, tools he had used to meticulously plan his dive. The realization was devastating. Shek was stuck somewhere deep below. Nearly 10 hours after their initial descent, Bowden miraculously surfaced, surviving his own life-threatening dive. Exley, however, a hero that had previously saved numerous other divers, remained in the depths of the Zacaton sinkhole. 3 days later, the recovery team pulled his descent line to the surface, bringing Exley's lifeless body with it. Jim Bowden reached an extraordinary depth of 915 feet during the dive, setting a world record for open-circuit scuba diving. Sterkfontein Cave Incident. It was September 29th, 1984. A cave explorer named Nuno Gomes was exploring unmapped sections of the Sterkfontein Cave in South Africa. He was accompanied by his two friends, Peter Verhulsel and Malcolm, and together they planned to lay a guideline from the entrance to the farthest point of the wet cave area known as Milner Hall. The plan was for Nuno to go in and place the guideline, while Peter and Malcolm waited outside, assisting him from the surface. Nuno plunged into the water and successfully laid the line, covering a distance of 396 feet from the entrance to the end. Happy because of the success, the three decided to go back in and follow the new guideline.
That is an entire football field.
The air pocket at the end, they were satisfied that they had successfully mapped this cave section. So they turned around and began to head out, following the line.
So what happened?
As Nuno led the group, he suddenly felt Malcolm touch him. Malcolm was signaling that Peter was no longer behind them. Nuno went back to see where Peter had gone and noticed that he had entered a side tunnel. Nuno tapped Peter to get his attention and signaled him to return to the guideline and exit the cave. As they headed back, however, Peter disappeared again. This time, Nuno and Malcolm
doing?
Hide and seek.
Taken the other exit, avoiding the tight squeeze they themselves used, so they did not go back to look for him. When Nuno and Malcolm surfaced and realized Peter was not there and still hadn't come out after a while, they submerged once more to look for him. They searched along the guideline and even in the side tunnels, but there was no sign of him. After 4 long hours, they ran out of air tanks, and the stirred-up silt reduced visibility to almost nothing. Finally, late that afternoon, they exited the cave and called for help.
At that point, what would you guys do?
Exactly what they're doing now. I would call for help.
What is the fire department going to do?
Come down with more air?
I guess, maybe. That's probably one of the scariest things, to get stuck in an underwater cave and you have scuba gear with a time limit.
Yeah, well, going caving is scary enough. Like, I've heard stories of people that just get stuck in little crevices in caves, but if you add a water element to it, that makes it 10 times scarier. Especially because, well, you have the scuba stuff on your back too, and that takes up a lot of space, and you can easily get stuck just from all the equipment on your back, which obviously you can't let go of, because if you let go of that, you can't breathe anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll never understand why people willingly go into not only just a dark area, but a dark area that's underground. And not only that, a dark area that is underground and also underwater. Those are 3 no-nos.
There's a chance that he's still alive, though. He could have found the water pocket and it's just like, or an air pocket, sorry, and it's just like chilling in the air pocket waiting to be saved. You never know.
Read the title, Alex.
No, he's definitely dead.
But lacking cave diving expertise, had to wait for the police divers to continue the search in the evening. The silt was so stirred up that visibility was heavily impaired. The police called off the search for the night, convinced they would now be searching for a body rather than a survivor. What no one realized was that Peter was not dead at all. He had been sidetracked by a secondary tunnel.
Why is he going inside tunnels?
3D structure, combined with the lack of a guideline, the stirred up silt, and the darkness, made it nearly impossible for him to orient himself. After trying many possible paths, Peter found a small room and decided to wait there for rescue.
Terrifying.
He shone his light into the water in hopes of signaling his friends, but when no one came for a long time, he switched it off to conserve the little battery life remaining. He tried making noise by banging his tank on the rocks, but to no avail.
He's stuck.
Eventually,
he
became
stuck.
exhausted, fell asleep, and lost track of time. After that first night of searching, the police closed off the cave so no one else could enter. Unfortunately, the silt took a long time to settle, so visibility remained poor. Convinced Peter had not survived, the police decided to wait a full week before resuming.
No way! He's got to starve by now, right?
He spent his last weeks scared underground, and he can't get out, and it's pitch black, and he thinks people are coming for him when they're not.
Well, you could survive a week. It depends how like fat he is, how long he can survive, and if maybe that water is drinkable.
Maybe
he can survive a lot longer if it's drinkable.
October 6th,
Read the
7
title
days
out.
after Peter's disappearance, they returned but found no sign of him. Another week passed before they tried again, but he was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, Peter was still alive. He had spent 14 days in complete darkness, starving and having lost much of his weight. Hoping for a way out, he decided to follow a passage leading from the small room where he had sheltered. After traveling 120 feet away from the water, he discovered it was only a dead end, so he returned to a spot near the water to wait once more for rescuers. The police continued weekend searches for 6 weeks, but they never found him and finally called off the search with no result. At that point, they reopened the dry sections of the cave, but kept the water section closed. Volunteers then began looking for a connection between the dry and wet cave systems, and Nuno joined them. His contributions were crucial. He was the one who discovered the connection where they could enter the wet section of the cave. It was there that they found a set of footprints leading to a dead end, and soon after, Peter's body. Beside his body was a message that read, "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." It was later discovered that one diver had come really close to finding him, as he entered an opening that was just 100 feet away from Peter's location.
No way.
100 feet's still far.
I mean, they were so close, though, considering how big this cave system was.
At that point, if he was banging, he maybe he would have heard him.
This is like the saddest story ever. That's awful.
Yeah. Caves are dangerous.
They're psychos. Everyone's psycho.
He died of starvation after 3 weeks in the cave. Although we may criticize Peter's decision to explore on his own, we should also respect the fact that he fought to survive until the very end. Crooked Swamp Incident.
All right, next up, Crooked Swamp Incident. Please don't be as bad as that one.
27th, 1982, and Donald Weltner, along with his 2 sons, Christopher and Roger, were about to lead a group of 12 Boy Scouts on a day of cave exploration. This wasn't Donald's first time caving, and even though the passages in the Crooked Swamp cave system were notoriously narrow, he wasn't too concerned. Donald was bigger than the other participants, so if he could get through, the rest of the group could too.
That's a good point.
At 2 o'clock, they entered the cave through its 16 by 28-inch entrance and stopped in a room.
That is so tiny.
I am not making it through that. There's no way.
Immediately, I am turning around, going on my couch, and I'm turning on Netflix.
Even if you guys like won the championship, and then your coach is like, "Come in this cave with me, Jack."
Cave explorers are like, they'll see a sign at the top of a cave that says, "Do not go in, you will die," and they'll be like, "Oh, this is gonna be an awesome Saturday."
It's like the crazy people that climb Mount Everest.
Yeah, I wonder like what they get out of it. I guess it's like adrenaline rushes.
It's the thrill.
Because yeah, it's like they almost die going in, and the fact that they get out is just like an overwhelming experience, I guess.
It's like Lewis and Clark, you know, they're exploring new areas that have never been seen before, maybe.
The bite is not worth the chew.
He was on the eastern side and noticed several smaller tunnels leading from the room. However, because they weren't sure which passages would be too narrow, Donald decided to check one. It involved a tight squeeze, but appeared to open to another section. So
that is insane.
The squeeze measured 18 by 20 inches.
No!
So tight that he couldn't
They realize they don't
move his
have to do
arms
this,
backward or
right?
lift his head to see ahead. He was followed by his sons. And
This
while
is not
moving
fun!
forward, thanks to the mud, making the terrain slippery, he reported back to them what was happening.
Everything
seemed normal until something unexpected occurred. As he pulled himself along, he realized the ground below him was disappearing. Donald slipped down into a tight crevice, and the slick mud prevented him from stopping his slide. His hands were trapped, leaving him no leverage to pull himself up.
He's
making
dead.
matters worse, the
Sure, his
path
kids can
angled
pull him
about
up, though.
30 degrees, so he had to fight against gravity. The crevice was
I think
just
I heard
5
about this
inches
one.
wide, and the slippery mud caused his body to settle more and more. He told his sons to pull on his feet, but after several failed attempts, he told them to get the other adult in the cave, Jim. After a while, Jim also realized they wouldn't be able to free Donald on their own.
No.
Donald explained that some rocks had loosened when he slid and were now wedging against his body. Each time they tried to pull him backward, the loose rocks would slide forward and block the passage.
He was stuck.
Even the animation is making me skeeved out, but imagine in real life, he's stuck, and it's pitch black, and you can't even move your hands or your body or anything, and you're just getting slowly crushed by earth.
Not only that, but like, I feel like after a couple of attempts of failing, that's when mentally you're like slowly realizing like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like I'm stuck here for days and that I'm just gonna rot. That's gotta be the worst feeling ever. Just like that realization of that you're stuck in a cave and there's nothing you can do to get out.
If you're in a tunnel, right, and you're squirming around like a worm on a Tuesday, you're already too far in. I hate to break it to you. Maybe you're having a blast down there just being a worm, but you are going to die, all right? This is a PSA. Do not do that.
That's what I'm saying. I can't believe they don't get him out.
Specialists and the police arrived, and because only one person could squeeze into that narrow space at a time, they tried using ropes to free Donald. This didn't work either, so they brought in tools to try breaking some of the rocks. However, given how tight the space was, hours of work led to only small breakthroughs, and Donald's situation grew worse. He was thirsty, hungry, and in a very cold environment, so hypothermia was a major concern. The cavers considered entering from the other side to give Donald food and water, but they found that the passage leading to where he laid was extremely narrow. Only two very small cavers, sisters Lynn and Nancy Taylor, were able to fit, but even then, they couldn't reach Donald's head. This meant there was no way of delivering supplies, so rescuers had to act quickly. They decided to dig from above ground, down to where Donald was stuck.
That's dangerous.
How deep do you think that was?
20, maybe 30.
It looks like they missed.
It does look like they completely missed.
Well, they're trying to get to the other side so that they can feed him.
No, maybe they're like digging straight down so that they can dig over later. Like once they get to the level. Because I guess if they dug straight down, they'd put a drill in his body. So I mean,
at least they're ending it quickly that way.
And they don't want the earth to move and then squish him even more.
Yeah, dang, this is reminding me of Minecraft.
The process lasted all day Sunday, getting them close to the required depth. Unfortunately, though, they were about 12 feet away from Donald's position, so they needed to dig laterally. Meanwhile, Donald began giving only grunting responses, which indicated he was likely suffering from hypothermia. On Monday morning, as 2 days passed from when he got stuck, the digging continued, but the team encountered another problem: extremely hard bedrock layers that were impossible to dig through. At this point, they weren't sure if Donald was still alive, so they sent a nurse into the cave with a handheld Doppler machine to see if he still had a pulse. She couldn't detect one, but this wasn't definitive proof of death, since she only had access to his very cold legs. Sometimes, the body's core organs can continue functioning after the extremities have stopped registering a pulse. Seeing how quickly Donald's condition was deteriorating, rescuers started using their most extreme tools, including dynamite, which was extremely risky, but appeared to be the only option left. On Tuesday morning, they finally managed to reach his location, and a doctor was sent in immediately, but as many feared, Donald had died. It took an entire day to retrieve his body, and an autopsy later confirmed he had succumbed to hypothermia sometime between Sunday night and Monday morning. Following his death, the cave system was restricted to limited access. Agent Allwed in
Alec, this is awful. Whose idea was it to watch this? This is gonna make me sad. I might cry.
I'm never going into a cave ever again.
Moral of the story of all these: do not go in a cave. Do this test before you go into any cave.
Guys, I'm not leaving my house.
If you think about it, like, the whole world is a cave.
Adam is so dumb.
Roger Solari and Martin Farr, aged 26 and 23 respectively, wanted to map out the Agent Allwed cave system in South Wales.
Oh, of course you did.
John Parker, another explorer, had abandoned the mission after discovering a third sump in one of its longest passages. Martin and Roger, however, wanted to keep going to see what lay beyond. The first trip was done by Martin alone, because Roger had hurt his knee, making it extremely dangerous for Martin to continue solo. Reaching the third sump was a feat in itself, since the route was not only tortuous, but also extremely long, lasting for hours, as the first sump was about a mile into the cave.
What? He crawled for a mile.
How long does that take? Because it takes me like 13 minutes to fully sprint.
He said hours.
Do you think he identifies as a mole?
You have to at that point. He's more mole than man.
What are we doing as people? What are we doing? We're supposed to be monkeys. We're supposed to be in the trees.
A lot of me feels bad for these people, but then a small sliver of me is like, doesn't feel that bad. Because it's like, what are you doing? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, if you think about it, someone's got to do this.
No, they don't.
Nobody has to do this.
But all the discoveries from the caves, right?
These people see a cave called like the 10 Pits of Purgatory, and they're like, oh, let's go in.
Wait, I'm thinking about it more and more. Can't you just send a robot in here and map it out?
Yeah, but that's not as fun, Adam. These people have fun doing this.
Measured only 249 feet and 82
that's
feet,
it?
so Martin passed through them relatively easily. However, the third sump was much longer, and nobody had fully explored it yet, so Martin could only hope he had enough air to reach the end. Fortunately, he managed
didn't
to
even
swim
know.
through it, about 850 feet, and on the other side, he found something else interesting, a zigzagging passage, roughly 1,800 feet long.
Let's guess. You guys think he's gonna keep going?
He's gonna keep going because he's insane, and it's gonna be a dead end, and he's gonna be stuck in there, and there's gonna be no way out.
It's only another mile? Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, no problem.
He doesn't know how far it is, and he literally has a limited supply of air with his tank. It's insanity. Maybe he doesn't go. Maybe this one is the one where someone doesn't die.
Nobody had known about this fourth sump, and Martin realized he probably wouldn't have enough air to explore it and then return. He spent the next 4 to 5 hours heading back out, planning to wait for Roger so they could tackle sump 4 together on the next trip. When they returned on June 15th,
he made it out. There we go.
Both Roger and Martin brought extra air tanks. They successfully reached sump 4 and began diving it with a guideline to help map the route. After about
at least they're being smart
feet,
about it.
Roger finished his guideline, and he had sinus problems,
God.
even though it wasn't the first time. Despite this, they decided to continue.
No!
Martin then took
Bad
out his
idea.
own guideline, and they kept going, but they made an important mistake. In cave diving, there is a concept called the rule of thirds for air consumption.
Yep.
If you use 1/3 of your air supply on the way in, you need another third to get out, leaving the final third as an emergency reserve. They had already used their first third and should have turned back when Roger's line ran out. Because Roger had a smaller tank than Martin, Martin assumed Roger would head out while he continued forward. He eventually came to a gravel wall of rock, which could have indicated the sump was ending, and possibly an air pocket. By this point, he was well past the halfway mark of his tank, so it was becoming extremely risky. He pushed on until he reached solid rock, confirming there was no air pocket. Spotting a passage to the right, he explored another 29 feet, but it ended in a dead end.
Kill himself.
When he backtracked, he was shocked to see Roger still there. Martin quickly signaled that they had to return. Roger, likely realizing he didn't have enough air to make it back, attempted to locate the same air pocket Martin had been searching for. Martin continued about 130 feet until his main tank ran out, forcing him to switch to a reserve tank. That would give him only about 300 feet in sump 4
Why are they
and
not
another
together?
850 feet in sump 3, barely enough. However, he had previously placed a partially filled tank between sump 3 and sump 2, and he aimed to reach that. Finally emerging from sump 4, Martin sat on the bank, waiting for Roger, who, remember, had a smaller tank. If he didn't appear soon, it would be a huge problem. After 20 minutes with no sign of Roger, Martin realized that if Roger had surfaced from sump 4 at that moment, he likely wouldn't have enough air left to get through sump 3. After an hour, Martin was certain Roger's air had run out. Martin entered the water again and tried pulling the guideline to make it tense, but it didn't. It was no longer connected. It had been cut at about the 430-foot mark. This was probably where Roger needed to change tanks. Because switching them wasn't a simple task at the time, he might have put his arm through the line to avoid losing it, twisted his body to reach the valve, and become tangled, forcing him to cut the line to move freely. This, combined with the silt kicked up by movement, likely reduced his visibility, and he may have swum the wrong way. At that point, there was no doubt Roger had exhausted his air.
I mean, he must have been panicking. He must have been panicking like crazy then, because he had to switch tanks underwater while being like tangled up. He's probably freaking out down there. Can't see nothing.
We just did scuba diving for the first time, and the one main thing that they told us not to do was to panic, because that's when you breathe more, and then you actually use up more oxygen, so your tank goes away quicker.
You could not pay me enough money to do something like this. These people are doing it for free. I don't get it.
I don't, just turn back when the tank is halfway. What are they doing?
Stayed calm and managed to navigate the next 3 sumps safely. He alerted the authorities immediately, and the search for Roger's body began. Martin himself joined the search, along with many others. However, Roger's remains were not found until 1986, 12 years later.
Nah. What? Nah! I thought there's only one passageway. Where was he?
Oh my goodness. I mean, the caves just get bigger and bigger as you go through because most people aren't crazy enough to map them out. So I guess they were the first people in this cave.
They gotta keep shifting as well because doesn't like water erodes over time.
Facts.
Covering the body was deemed too risky, so it was left in the cave, and a plaque was placed near the entrance of Sump 1 in Roger's honor. In 1987,
do you guys think there's people that saw that? Never mind, he's about to answer my question. There's people that saw that grave in the cave and they kept going because they're brave.
Brave is a strong word. I would say they're crazy.
Or passed through Sump 4 and finally located the air pocket, 875 feet in, the very one Roger and Martin had hoped to find. It was called the Against All Odds Chamber. Martin stated that after this incident, he never broke the rule of thirds again. He went on to have a remarkable diving career. Today, the entrance to the cave system is locked, and only specific, experienced divers are granted a key. Floyd Collins in.
You're telling me
that's for the best.
There's people that still go in that cave to this day.
Yes.
What?
I don't think you can pay me enough money to do any of that.
$100 million, Alec. That's
Okay,
what
I'm
I
in.
said. That's what I said.
I'm in.
I just changed Alec's mind. He's in.
Oh, nah, I'm good.
Alec, your broad shoulders, you are not surviving that cave. And you breathe a lot, too. Every one of your breaths is like 3 of that dude's breaths.
You have sinus problems.
Sorry, $100 million? I can't
I don't
pass up
know.
on that.
When you're actually there, Alec, I think you'd pass it up. It ain't worth it.
Floyd Collins incident. In
This is
late
the last
December
one.
1924, Floyd Collins discovered a cave called Sand Cave, which was easily accessible to tourists because it was near a highway. He quickly struck a deal with the land's owners to receive 50% of any profits from the cave's exploration.
Ooh.
Afterward, he immediately began working.
Is that why people explore the caves for like gold, diamonds, stuff like that?
That's probably part of it sometimes, yeah. But some people are mentally insane and still do it anyway without any promise of money.
It's do it for the fun. Okay. Now that money's involved,
There's no
Alex
significant
back.
entrance, however. Many tourists avoided it. As a result, Floyd spent hours every day over the next few weeks digging deeper and deeper. On January 30th, 1925, it was snowing outside, and once again, Floyd went into the cave, only
Why
to
is he
find
so
something
happy?
shocking. Crawling forward with a lantern, he reached what was
Do not
known
go
as the
through that.
turnaround room, called that way because many
Oh.
cavers would stop there and turn around, deeming it too risky
Yes.
to continue. The
Good-
only way
good
to
idea.
go farther was through a tiny, narrow hole called the
Why would he
squeeze,
do it
which measured
alone?
Only 9 inches in
Do
height.
not.
9 inches? My head is
Do
bigger than
not!
9 inches. My head can't make it through that.
This is 9 inches right here, guys.
Let alone my shoulders and my booty cheeks. Like, what the?
How does he do that?
I've watched videos of people doing similar stuff to this, and it literally you have to tilt your head sideways, and the only way you can move is if you breathe out. You have to go like this. And then you start squeezing, and then you can breathe a little bit. And then you breathe out, and then you keep squirming.
That's.
I wouldn't even do that in a video game. I'd be scared for the character.
Push through. Beyond the squeeze, he saw a narrow pit
Oh, he
dropping
made it.
about 10 feet. He went down feet first and reached the bottom, where he found yet another pit. Squatting down, he removed the remaining rocks and debris and finally saw an opening into the main
Where
cave.
do they go?
He tied a rope in place and descended an 80-foot drop. Reaching the cavern floor, he was amazed by the sight.
Okay,
but
this is
noticed
kinda
that
cool.
the
It's
light
kind of
was starting
awesome.
to dim. Wanting to avoid being left in the dark, he climbed back up the 80-foot drop and began returning, moving
I think he's gonna get stuck in the same one that he tried to get through because it's gonna be different than when he came back in.
Yeah, you have to do it all in reverse.
Yeah.
It's like being able to do a front flip is different from being able to do a back flip.
Wait,
Yeah.
do you think he's gonna go foot first or head first?
You have to
It's
go
gotta
ahead
go head
first.
You gotta go
Yeah.
head first. All right.
Stupid
and
question.
pushing his lantern with his shoulder. Unfortunately,
Dude.
his lantern slipped into a tiny hole and shattered,
Oh.
leaving him in total
Oh.
darkness.
Yep.
Because the
No.
cavern was extremely unstable, Floyd knew he had to move
Oh.
carefully to avoid dislodging loose rocks. Unable to see,
Oh,
however, he
no.
kicked one loose
No!
and it fell onto his left
No!
leg, trapping him. He tried freeing himself with
God.
his right leg, but the more he moved, the more rocks tumbled down,
Oh my
further
God.
wedging him in place.
Oh,
It was 10
no.
a.m., and he began shouting for help, hoping someone
Thank
would
God
hear
it's
him.
a stick
He remained
animation.
there all day, and by
Thank God.
9 a.m. the next morning, nearly 24 hours after he had become
What?
trapped, 2 of the cave's owners arrived with their 17-year-old son, Jewel Estes, to check on him. They saw Floyd's coat hanging outside the cave and called his name, but no one answered, so they ventured deeper. Before long, the 2 owners turned back because the
See ya.
passages were too tight, but Jewel continued
Okay.
and eventually found Floyd, who asked him to call his brothers for help. Soon, Marshall Collins, Floyd's brother, and Lee Collins,
no.
Floyd's father, reached the entrance, finding a growing crowd watching the rescue attempt. Marshall
What-
and another
why
man
are they
went
watching?
inside to
I mean, it's like a train wreck. You gotta watch it. You can't look away.
You gotta leave them be. You're just causing problems.
Say this, you're on the highway, you see a group of people, you pull over, you check it out, you find out that somebody is stuck in a cave. You're just gonna be like, oh, okay, and then you keep driving?
Yeah, well, you make space for the people that need to be there for help. They're just gathering around for their own amusement. This is a life and death situation.
I think I would stay.
in the passage, digging carefully so as not to send loose rocks tumbling onto Floyd. At 4 p.m., Floyd's other brother Homer arrived. Floyd had previously
Homer.
asked Homer to come along that day, so Homer felt guilty for refusing and did his best to help. He did reach Floyd, but a new problem emerged. The crowds outside had started multiple bonfires. The
Okay.
melting ice
Why?
funneled water
Dude.
into
No.
the cave, creating mud and sending
Are you
freezing
kidding me?
cold water down
See, this
toward
is what I'm
Floyd.
saying,
After
Adam.
8 hours
That is crazy.
That is the worst one yet.
They are gonna kill him.
That's insane.
with Floyd, his brothers had to rest. Upon emerging, Homer grew furious at the huge crowd, telling people to leave if they couldn't help. However, none of them listened. Reporters began
What?
arriving, hoping to interview Homer.
Jack, that's
tired
you.
of the questions.
Yep, that's
He told them
Jack
to
right
see
there.
For themselves inside
What did
the
I do?
cave. Confusion and rumors.
You're probably
spread.
peeing in
Some
the
claimed
cave so the
Floyd
water
was
goes
already
down?
dead,
No!
or that the cave had collapsed entirely. Determined to prove otherwise, Marshall offered a $500,000 reward to anyone who saved his brother. As rumors spread more, however, he went in to check on Floyd himself and found him alive. Floyd managed to free one hand, suggesting they tie a rope around his chest to pull him out. But as soon as they tried, he begged them to stop, saying he felt like he was being pulled in two. Homer worked continuously, removing dirt and debris until he was utterly exhausted and needed medical attention. By Tuesday night, 95 hours after Floyd had become trapped, a reporter named Skeets entered the cave and installed a light bulb.
No, Skeets.
While removing rubble, Skeets exposed more of Floyd's legs, but still couldn't free him. His story and interview with Floyd were published, drawing even larger crowds. Hotels nearby were filled, and at least 1,000 people gathered around Sand Cave. All this activity further weakened the cave walls, putting it at risk of collapse.
Dude, the people are gonna kill him again!
Literally, like everything that could have gone wrong here has gone wrong.
I guess I'm what's wrong with society. Why would I stay there?
This could have been preventable. A, if he didn't go in the cave, and B, if he wasn't surrounded by a bunch of absolute idiots.
They're probably jumping all drunk, acting like it's a tailgate. Like, this is a serious thing.
Like, there's people that heard about this in the news and then legit went there just to hang out.
Nobody realized it at the time, as everyone was rooting for Floyd. At hour 123, the entrance to the pit collapsed, blocking any access to Floyd and cutting off deliveries of food
messed
and
him
water.
up.
By
That's
hour
literally
144,
their fault.
a team of workers formed to dig a new tunnel to reach him. The only way they could know if Floyd was still alive was the light bulb Skeets had installed. It was connected to another bulb outside, which would flicker when Floyd breathed. They dug relentlessly, but with no food or water reaching Floyd,
that's really
combined
cool.
with the cold temperature, his chances were fading quickly. By Friday, February 13th, the men had nearly reached him, and one worker reported hearing groaning about 10 feet away. However, at 1:30 a.m. on February 16th, a worker reached Floyd and found him already deceased. Initially, Floyd's body was left in the cave. After some time, though, his brother Homer arranged for its removal and gave him a proper burial.